Story 1. This story is titled, GF's Son Falsely Accused Me, and I Got Arrested. Now the truth is out, and she is begging me to drop charges. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey guys! Thought about venting here a bit. Okay, so this whole mess started about a year and a half ago. I, 39 male, met this girl Sarah, 35 female, at this work conference thing. We hit it off pretty quick, started dating, and honestly things were going great. Like really great. She had this kid from a previous relationship, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kinda nervous about that at first, cause I'd never dated someone with a kid before. Her son Tommy was 7. Smart kid, bit shy but we got along pretty well. His real dad was this total loser who kept going in and out of prison, so I guess I ended up being like the only stable guy in the kid's life. Not that I was trying to be his dad or anything. We were more like friends. He'd show me his video games, tell me about school, normal kid stuff. I work in finance, got a pretty good job that I worked my butt off to get. Company car, nice benefits, the whole deal. Sarah was working as an admin assistant, not making much but trying her best with Tommy. I started helping out here and there, you know? Nothing major at first, just like groceries sometimes, or getting the kid some school stuff he needed. They lived in this tiny apartment in a kinda rough area. The heating barely worked in winter, and their neighbors were always fighting and stuff. Sarah kept saying she wanted to move but couldn't afford anything better. I had this nice 4-bedroom house in a good area, and yeah, I started thinking maybe they could move in. We'd been together over a year at this point. Things were solid. Made sense to take that next step. Tommy was doing good in school but struggling a bit with math, so I'd help him with homework sometimes. Kid was actually pretty bright, just needed someone to explain stuff properly. His teachers even said his grades were getting better. Sarah would always make this big deal about it, saying how great I was with him, how he'd never had anyone take an interest in his schoolwork before. I gotta say though, it felt good. Like, really good. I never had kids of my own. Can't have them actually, found that out years ago. So having this kid look up to me, get excited to show me his good grades and stuff, it meant a lot. And Sarah seemed so grateful for everything, always saying how I'd change their lives. We had this routine going. I'd come over after work, we'd all have dinner together, help Tommy with homework, maybe watch a movie or something. Normal family stuff, you know? Sometimes on weekends we'd go to the park or the movies. Sarah started talking about maybe quitting her job if we moved in together. Said she could spend more time with Tommy, maybe even go back to school herself. It all sounded pretty good to me. I mean, I had the space, I was doing well at work, and they were basically already spending most weekends at my place anyway. Looking back now, I was such an idiot. Like everything seemed so perfect. Single mom working hard to give her kid a better life, sweet kid who just needed a positive male role model, me thinking I'm this great guy helping them out. Classic setup, right? But when you're in it, when you're watching this kid grow and thinking you're making a difference in someone's life, you don't see the red flags. I remember this one time, Tommy had this school presentation. His dad had promised to come, even told the kid he'd take him for pizza after. Of course, he never showed. Tommy was trying so hard not to cry. I ended up taking him for that pizza anyway, told him how proud I was of his presentation. The way that kid smiled, man, that stuff feels real, you know? Makes it hard to believe it was all part of some plan. We were even talking about maybe taking a proper holiday together that summer. Tommy had never been abroad, and Sarah found this really good deal for a week in Spain. I was gonna pay for most of it, but she insisted on contributing what she could. That's another thing that made it all seem legit. She never just took handouts, always tried to pay her way when she could. But yeah, that's how it all started, before it turned into an absolute shit. So things started getting weird about 3 months before everything went to hell. Looking back now, I can see how Sarah was setting everything up, but at the time I was too stupid to notice. It started with her getting really interested in my work stuff. Like really interested. She'd ask all these questions about our computer systems, how we handle client data, security protocols and stuff. I thought she was just showing interest in my job, maybe thinking about getting into finance herself. What an idiot I was. She started having these emergencies with her laptop. Would ask to use mine to check her email or do some online banking, always when I was around at first. But then she'd find reasons to use it when I was in the shower or making dinner. Should have noticed how she'd close everything super fast when I walked back in the room. Then she got real sneaky about my phone. Started saying stuff like, "Oh babe, can you show me those holiday pictures again?" Or, "Let me add my new work number to your contacts." Small stuff that didn't seem weird at the time. But she was watching me put in my passcode every time. The money stuff ramped up too. She'd been having these temporary money problems for a while, always with a good reason, always promising to pay me back. But around this time, she started talking about combining our finances. Said it would be easier since we were planning to move in together anyway. Started dropping hints about adding her name to my accounts, just in case something happens to you for Tommy's sake. One day I caught her taking pictures of some papers in my home office. She played it off real smooth, said Tommy wanted to draw me something, but needed to know how to spell my full name and address properly. Even showed me this cute card he made later. Man, she had. She got Tommy involved too, but in this really subtle way. Kids started having all these school projects that needed expensive supplies, or suddenly needed a new laptop for his schoolwork. Always stuff that made me look like the bad guy if I said no. What kind of person refuses to help a kid with his education, right? The worst part was how she used my own work schedule against me. She knew I had this big project coming up, was going to be working late a lot. Started setting up all these family dinners and saying how Tommy was so sad he barely saw me anymore. Made me feel guilty for working so much. She even started messing with my friend circle. Would make little comments about how my best mate Dave seemed a bit off with her, or how my sister didn't really like Tommy. Just planting these tiny seeds of doubt, getting me to trust her more than anyone else. She also started showing up at my office with lunch sometimes. Got to know the receptionist, always super friendly with everyone. Building up this image of the perfect girlfriend. Even had Tommy make Christmas cards for my team. Everyone thought she was amazing. My boss used to joke about when I was gonna make an honest woman of her. Then there was this weird thing with my mail. Started noticing some stuff wasn't arriving. Bank statements, credit card bills, that kind of thing. She'd volunteered to get my mail when I was working late. Her idea of said the postman was leaving stuff in the wrong boxes, probably just got lost. Even helped me set up paperless billing to solve the problem. Yeah, real helpful. She made it all seem so natural, so inevitable, like we were just moving toward this perfect future together. And I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that I had finally found something real, that this family we were building wasn't just in my head, but there were moments, tiny, fleeting moments, where something felt off. A weird tightness in my chest when she'd bring up finances, a split second of hesitation in her voice when she'd talk about our forever. I'd shake it off, tell myself I was just being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. After all, wasn't this what I wanted? A family? A place where I truly belonged? I ignored the nagging feeling, let myself get swept up in the dream she was spinning, and that was my biggest mistake. The last few weeks before everything went down, I noticed how Tommy started calling me Dad by accident. Sarah and I would talk about our future, making all these plans. Even started looking at rings online. I was enjoying these moments, never expected what would come next. Everything went sideways one Tuesday morning. I remember being in this big team meeting, presenting some quarterly numbers to my colleagues. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, but I ignored it. Was in the middle of this important presentation. As soon as the meeting finished, I checked my phone. 4 missed calls from reception. Weird, but not panic-worthy. Figured maybe Sarah had tried to drop off lunch or something. I was heading back to my office when I saw them. 2 police officers talking to my boss outside his office. Even then, I didn't think it was about me. Funny how your brain works? My boss saw me and got this really weird look on his face, called me over. The police officers turned around and I can still feel that moment in my gut. You know that feeling when your whole world just stops? Everything goes quiet and slow, like you're underwater? They started saying something about needing to ask me some questions. I remember nodding, thinking there must be some mistake. Then they started reading me my rights, in the middle of my office, in front of everyone. I looked at my boss, like maybe he'd say something. Stop this madness. But he just looked away. The walk from my office to the police car was the longest of my life. People were staring. Someone was filming on their phone. I kept thinking about my presentation like, I need to finish explaining those numbers. Stupid, right? Your whole life is falling apart, and you're worried about work stuff. They put me in this interview room at the station and told me why I was there. The words they used, I can't even write them. About Tommy. About what they were saying I did to him. I threw up right there in the interview room. The officers had to stop the interview while they got someone to clean up. I kept saying they had it wrong, that I'd never hurt Tommy, that I loved that kid. They just kept asking the same questions over and over. When was the last time I was alone with him? Had anyone else ever expressed concerns? Was I ever inappropriate with him? Each question made me feel sicker than the last. 12 hours. That's how long they kept me there. 12 hours of the same questions, different officers, same accusations, no phone, no contact with anyone. Just me in that room, trying to understand how my life had turned into this nightmare. When they finally let me out on bail, I couldn't go home. Part of the conditions, no contact with Sarah or Tommy, had to stay away from their home and school. Had to give them my passport, like I was some kind of criminal. They took my work laptop, my phone, Said they needed to check them for evidence. I ended up at this cheap hotel near the station. Couldn't face calling any friends yet. What would I even say? Hey mate, I've been accused of the worst thing imaginable. Mind if I crash on your couch? The hotel clerk looked at me weird when I checked in, probably because I was still in my work clothes from that morning, looking like I'd aged about 20 years. That first night was, I don't even know how to describe it. Kept having these panic attacks, couldn't sleep, kept thinking about Tommy, about Sarah. Were they okay? Was Tommy scared? Did Sarah really believe I could do something like that? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my colleagues' faces as I was let out of the office. The next morning, my boss called, said they were putting me on gardening leave while everything got sorted out. His voice was different, professional, like we hadn't worked together for 5 years, like we hadn't gone to each other's BBQs, celebrated promotions together. I also started noticing people unfriending me on social media, colleagues, friends, even some family members. Nobody asked for my side of the story. Just dropped me, just like that. Years of friendships gone in hours. The worst part? I couldn't even be angry at them. Because if someone told me this about someone else, I'd probably react the same way. That's what makes these accusations so destructive. Even if you're innocent, just being accused changes how everyone sees you. Forever. Tried to get money out to pay for the hotel, and my card got declined. Checked my banking app. Account was frozen pending investigation. Had to call my sister, tell her everything, beg her to lend me some cash. She helped, but I could hear it in her voice. That tiny bit of doubt. Her own brother, and there was still that what if. That's how my life fell apart. In less than 24 hours, I went from respected professional to nothing. No home, no access to my money, no friends, just sitting in a cheap hotel room, watching my phone light up with more people unfriending me, waiting to find out if I'd ever get my life back. You know that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks? That's what it felt like, except instead of being on some tropical island, I was stuck in this crappy hotel room watching my whole life implode. My work situation got worse real quick. HR sent this email about a formal review meeting to discuss my position within the company. Translation: they were looking for a way to fire me without getting sued. Didn't matter that I hadn't been convicted of anything. Just being accused was enough to make them want me gone. Started noticing how people treated me different. Like I went to my local shop one morning. Same place I'd been going for years. The owner, this old guy who usually chats about football with me, he just stared at the floor, wouldn't even look at me. Guess news travels fast in a small town. My colleagues, man, that hurt. These people I'd worked with for years, gone for drinks with, been to their weddings and kids' birthday parties, they all just disappeared. My phone used to buzz all day with work group chats and messages. Now, nothing. Dead silence. Even my best mate Dave, known him since uni, sent this message saying he needed some space to process things, like I was the one who betrayed him. The police interviews were the worst. They'd call me in randomly, ask the same questions over and over, always trying to trip me up, catch me in a lie. But how do you prove you didn't do something? Every answer just made me sound more guilty to them. My lawyer had to get one, cost me almost all my savings, kept saying to document everything, keep records, said we needed to build a case. But a case for what? My life was already in pieces. Even if I proved my innocence, how do you come back from something like this? Some days I'd drive past Tommy's school, just to torture myself, I guess. Would see all these parents picking up their kids, living their normal lives. Meanwhile, I couldn't go within 500 meters of him because of the bail condition. The kid I used to help with homework, who I took to football practice, who made me those stupid world's best almost dad cards. Now I was legally banned from even seeing him. Had this meeting with HR and my boss about my position. They sat there with these fake sympathetic faces, talking about company reputation and duty of care to other employees, like I was some kind of threat. 5 years I'd given that company, won them awards, brought in big clients. None of it mattered now. My sister tried to help, bless her, would bring me food, clean clothes, but I could see it wearing her down too. The whispers from her friends, the awkward question. One day she broke down crying, asked me if I was sure I didn't do anything inappropriate, even by accident. That's when I realized, if my own sister had doubts, what hope did I have with anyone else? Eventually, one day everything changed. I was sitting in that hotel room, right? Been there almost 3 weeks now. When my phone rings, it's the police station. My heart starts doing that crazy pounding thing again. Every time they called before it was to drag me in for more questioning. But this time it's different. The officer, the same guy who arrested me actually, says they need me to come in, but his voice is different, not hostile like before. So I drag myself down there, expecting another 6 hours of the same questions, but instead they take me to this different room, more like an office. Then this detective comes in and starts talking real careful, like he's picking his words super carefully, says they've had new information, and developments in the case. I'm sitting there thinking, great, what now? What else could they possibly accuse me of? That's when he drops it. Tommy admitted he made it up, just like that. Apparently, he broke down during an interview and told them the truth. But here's where it gets really messed up. He told them who really hurt him. It wasn't me. It was his cousin, Sarah's nephew. Kid's only 12 himself. I just sat there, couldn't even speak. Like my brain couldn't process what I was hearing. The detective's still talking, saying something about how children sometimes displace trauma, how Tommy was scared to accuse his cousin because it would cause family problems. All I could think was, I'm innocent. They know I'm innocent. They gave me this official letter saying all charges were dropped. Just a piece of paper. But man, felt like I was holding my life back in my hands. But then the detective says something that made my blood froze. He mentions they found some other concerning elements during their investigation. Asked if I'd noticed any unusual activity with my accounts. That's when everything clicked. All those times Sarah used my laptop, the missing mail, the weird charges I'd noticed but ignored because I trusted her. With shaking hands, I pulled up my banking app right there in front of the detective, started going through transactions I hadn't been able to access while everything was frozen. Holy shit. There were transfers I'd never made, credit cards I'd never applied for, loans in my name I knew nothing about. She'd been setting this up for months, used the accusations as a smokescreen while she drained everything she could get her hands on, even tried to refinance my house. Paperwork was pending when I got arrested. The detective said they'd found evidence on her phone, texts to someone about getting everything in place before the accusations happened. She knew. She fucking knew what her nephew had done to Tommy, and instead of protecting her son, she used it as an opportunity to destroy me. I sat there in that office for hours, making statements, signing papers. They said they'd investigate the fraud, but honestly, I didn't even care about the money anymore. All I could think about was Tommy. This poor kid, hurt by someone he trusted, then manipulated by his own mother into accusing an innocent person. Had this moment where I nearly threw up again. Remembered all those times Sarah would leave Tommy with her sister's family, saying it was good for him to spend time with his cousin. She knew. She had to have known what was happening, but she was so focused on her plan, on setting me up, that she let it keep happening. When I finally left the station, I just sat in my car and cried. Not even sad crying, just this weird, empty feeling. Everything I'd lost, my reputation, my job, my friends, and for what? So Sarah could use her own kid's trauma as a cover for stealing from me? Started getting messages from her then. Probably heard the charges were dropped. First one was this long paragraph about how sorry she was, how she did it because she was desperate, how she still loved me. Then another saying how she'd pay me back, she just needed time. Then one begging me not to press charges because, think about Tommy. That last one got me. Using her kid again, even now. Tommy, who'd been through hell, who she forced to lie to the police, who she used as a pawn in her sick game. That's when the anger really hit. Not for what she did to me, though that was bad enough, but for what she did to her own son. Called my lawyer right there from the car park. Told him everything. He started talking about civil suits, criminal charges, restraining orders, but all I could think about was Tommy. Asked if there was any way to make sure he got help, real help, without me having to see Sarah again. The detective called again that evening. Said they'd picked Sarah up for questioning about the fraud. Said she broke down, admitted everything. Claimed she did it because she had gambling debts, people threatening her. Always an excuse, right? But then he told me something that made everything even worse. This wasn't her first time doing this. There were other guys, other accusations, other cities. Tommy wasn't even her only kid. She had another one she'd lost custody of years ago. And just like that, her whole desperate single mom act started falling apart. When she got to court, she tried to sell the sob story, crying about how she was just trying to give Tommy a better life, how she had no choice, how she never meant for things to go this far. It might have worked if she wasn't a serial scammer. 3 of her exes came forward, men she'd pulled the same stunts on, all with proof. One nearly lost his house, another was falsely accused of abuse, and the last went bankrupt trying to support her. Then the prosecution played the recording, her laughing about how men are so easy to control. She went pale. The courtroom gasped. Her lawyer had nothing. Then came the final blow. The judge asked why, if she was so desperate, she had wired thousands to an online casino just weeks before my arrest. The prosecution pulled up bank records, straight from my stolen accounts. Her lawyer stammered, she broke down, and for the first time she realized she was done. She tried one last move, begging, playing the victim, claiming she was just a mother who wanted the best for her son. The judge didn't even flinch. A good mother doesn't use her child as a weapon. 4 years, no parole, no lenience. As she was led away, she tried to make eye contact with me, like I was supposed to forgive her, like I was supposed to save her. I didn't. She mouthed, maybe please, maybe help me. I turned my back and walked out, but my whole body went cold. All those stories about Tommy's dad being in prison, about her struggling as a single mom, about her terrible ex who abandoned them. How many of those were lies? How much of the person I thought I knew was real? After opened my eyes to the reality, something in me just snapped. Not in a violent way, but more like I finally woke up. All that confusion and depression turned into this cold, focused anger. I decided I wasn't going to be her victim anymore, so I hired the best fraud lawyer I could find. Maxed out my last clean credit card to pay for it, but it was worth every penny. Guy took one look at my case and actually smiled. Said Sarah had made some amateur mistakes in her paper trail that would make this easy. Remember that detective who told me about her past victims? Well, I had my lawyer contact them. Turns out Sarah had a pattern. She'd done similar stuff in 3 other cities. Always targeted successful guys, always used her kid as part of the con, but she'd always managed to skip town before things got too hot. Not this time. I gave the police everything. Every email, every text, every bank statement. Those pictures she took of my documents, she wasn't as tech savvy as she thought. They still had the original metadata showing exactly when and where they were taken. My lawyer called it a paper-perfect fraud case. Then I went after my company. See, while I was sitting in that hotel room thinking my life was over, I'd been making notes of every conversation, every email, every meeting. Documented how they treated me before any conviction, how they were trying to force me out. When my lawyer saw it, he actually laughed, said they'd violated about 6 different employment laws, had this meeting with HR and the regional manager, brought my lawyer along. You should have seen their faces when he walked in. Suddenly, all that talk about protecting the company's reputation disappeared. Funny how quick they changed their tune when they realized I could sue them for unfair dismissal and discrimination. The best part? Sarah tried to contact me again, crying about how she was sorry, how she'd pay me back, how she needed help. I didn't respond. Just forwarded every message to my lawyer and the police. Each desperate message just dug her hole deeper. Then I found out she'd started bad-mouthing me on social media, playing the victim. Perfect. My lawyer said that was exactly what we wanted. More evidence of defamation. Every post, every comment, every lie she told just made our case stronger. Remember those friends who ghosted me? They started crawling back once the truth came out. Dave, my supposed best mate, tried to act like nothing happened. Just looking out for the kids, mate, he said. Yeah, well, looking out for your mate of 15 years might have been good too. I blocked his number. Found out Sarah had been lying to Tommy about his real dad too. Guy wasn't in prison. She just kept them apart with false accusation. My lawyer helped me get evidence to his father's attorney. Now she's facing interference with custody on top of everything else. My company settled out of court. Full back pay, hefty compensation for the emotional distress, and a glowing reference for my next job. They even offered to keep me on with a promotion, but by then I was done with them. Tommy's with his dad now, getting proper counseling. I sent him a letter through his therapists. Told him none of this was their fault, that he is just a kid caught up in Sarah's games. Not sure if he'll ever read them, but it felt right. So yeah, I'm writing this after 6 months since everything went down. 6 months since Sarah got sentenced, since Tommy went to live with his dad, since I started putting my life back together. First off, Sarah's in prison now. 4 years. Probably serve 2 if she behaves. Her family tried reaching out to me after the sentencing. Apparently they had no idea about her past, about the other guys she'd scammed. Sure they didn't. Blocked their numbers too. The money situation's still messy. Insurance covered about 60% of what she stole, but I'm still fighting to get the rest back. My lawyer says we might be able to get some from her family. Turns out they were keeping some of her earnings for her. Karma's funny like that. The work stuff actually turned out okay. After the settlement, I used some of the money to start my own consulting business, working from home mostly, picking my own clients. Pay is not as good as my old job yet, but I don't have to deal with office politics or people whispering behind my back. The hardest part was dealing with Tommy's letter. Kid wrote to me from his new home with his dad. His therapist helped him write it. You could tell because it was all proper and formal, not like the notes he used to leave on my fridge. Said he was sorry for lying, that his mom told him he had to do it or bad people would hurt them. Said he missed me. I wrote back. Took me like 20 drafts to get it right. Told him none of it was his fault, that he was just a kid caught up in adult problems. Said I hoped he was doing better with his dad, that I was glad he was getting help. Didn't promise to stay in touch though. Some doors are better left closed, you know? Had to move cities in the end. Too many memories. Too many people who knew the story, but not the truth. Found this nice place up north, near the coast. Different scene, different people. Nobody here knows me as that guy who got accused, or Sarah's ex. I'm just the new guy who works in finance and goes running on the beach. Dating again? Nah, not yet. I got some trust issues to work through first. Plus, single moms are definitely off the table for a while. Maybe forever. Call it trauma, call it learning from experience, whatever. Funny thing is, some good actually came from all this. Made me realize who my real friends were. Like my sister, she stuck by me even when she had doubts. And this guy Mark from my old rugby club, he was the only one who actually asked for my side of the story before judging. They're the only ones from my old life I still talk to. The other day I was going through some old boxes, found those Father's Day cards Tommy made me. Nearly threw them out but ended up keeping them. Not because I miss those times, now I know they weren't even real, but as a reminder to trust my gut next time something feels off. Sarah still tries to contact me sometimes. Got her sister to pass me a letter last month saying she's changed in prison and wants to make amends. Return address went straight in the bin. Some people don't deserve second chances, and that's where things stand now. Life's different, but not all bad. Got my own business, new city, fresh start. Still got some trust issues to work through, still jump a bit when my phone rings with an unknown number, but I'm getting there. Think the biggest lesson from all this is that sometimes the happy ending isn't getting everything back to how it was. Sometimes it's about building something new from the wreckage, something that's maybe not as shiny but is stronger, more real. Edit. Thanks for all the messages of support. And to the guy who asked, yeah, I did eventually get a dog. This big rescue mutt who's just as messed up as I am. We're figuring things out together. Final update. For those asking about Sarah's sentence, just heard she lost her appeal. She's serving the full 4 years. Sometimes justice does work. TLDR. Life got destroyed by false accusations and fraud, but rebuilt it. Different now, but okay. Sometimes okay is enough. Story 2. This story is titled, I gave my parents $2,000 every month for 3 years. But when I came for Christmas, they kicked me out. So I took my revenge. Hey everyone. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Man, I never thought I'd be typing this out at 2 a.m., sitting in my home office. But after the shit show that went down this Christmas, I need to get this off my chest. Been lurking on this sub for months, reading other people's stories, thinking, damn, at least my family's not that bad. Well, turns out I was wrong. So fucking wrong. For context, I'm 34, and I've spent the last 8 years climbing the ladder in medical device sales. You know those crazy expensive machines and implants that keep people alive in hospitals? That's my world. And let me tell you, it wasn't handed to me on a silver platter like my parents seem to think. First year in the business, lived out of my 2008 Honda Civic. No joke. Commission-only sales are brutal when you're starting out. Imagine trying to convince surgeons to trust you with their patients' lives when you're sleeping in a Planet Fitness parking lot and showering at the gym. But that's what it took to break into the industry. My parents thought I was insane for giving up my stable office job, boring AF data entry gig that was slowly killing my soul, to pursue this. Why can't you just be happy with a normal job? Was their favorite line back then. But I grinded. Hard. Like wake up at 4:30 a.m., hit the gym by 5, cause looking professional matters in this industry, on the road by 7, and usually don't finish with surgeons until late. Sometimes I'd be in the OR until 9 p.m., watching procedures to learn the equipment better. That first year was hell, but it paid off. Hit top seller in my region 3 years running now, pulling in solid 6 figures. Not trying to flex. Trust me, this matters for the story. Built myself up from literally nothing. Got my own place now. Decent 3-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. Nothing crazy luxurious, but it's mine. And yeah, I'm single. Dated here and there, had a serious relationship that ended last year. She wanted me to slow down and take more vacation. Like, that's not how you stay on top in this industry. My folks never understood that grind mentality. They ran their antique restoration business the same way for 25 years. Never tried to expand, never took risks. Speaking of their business, that's where this whole mess started. When COVID hit, everything went to shit. Their shop was actually pretty successful before that. They restored old furniture, did custom work for some high-end clients, had a solid reputation in our city. But when everything shut down, orders dried up overnight. Their regular customers disappeared, new projects got canceled, and suddenly they're sitting on a warehouse full of half-finished pieces and bills they couldn't pay. That's when it started. The calls, the subtle hints about their struggles. They're reminiscing about how they'd always been there for me. And yeah, they had been, in their way. Put a roof over my head, sent me to decent schools, public, but in a good district. Never missed a birthday. So when they needed help, I couldn't say no. Started sending them $2,000 every month. Doesn't sound like much compared to some stories I've read on here, but do the math. That's $24,000 a year. $72,000 over 3 years. Could have bought a Tesla with that money. Not that I would, because depreciation is a bitch, but you get the point. At first, it felt good. Like I was finally paying them back for everything. They were so grateful in the beginning. Mom would cry on the phone. Dad would tell me how proud he was. But you know how these things go. Gradually, the gratitude turned into expectation. The thank yous became shorter. The calls started focusing more on what they needed next. The part that really gets me? My brother Jake. Dude's 31, lives in their basement with his gaming setup and his streaming career that makes about enough to buy a pizza every month. But somehow, I'm the bad guy. Because I occasionally mention that $2,000 is a lot to send every month. Meanwhile, he's posting on Instagram about his hustle and grind with pictures of his setup and his energy drinks. Real hard worker, that one. I used to defend him when we were kids. He was my little bro, you know? When he got bullied in high school for being the weird kid who was too into anime, I had his back. When he dropped out of community college because school isn't for everyone, I supported him. Told our parents to give him time to figure his shit out. Well, it's been 10 years, and the only thing he's figured out is how to mooch more effectively. Looking back now, I can see how it all led to what happened this Christmas. The signs were there. The way Mom would slip Jake's career goals into conversation. How Dad started talking about family legacy and supporting each other. The passive-aggressive texts about how some people have it easier than others. I just never thought it would blow up the way it did. Never imagined I'd end up here, typing this out at 2 a.m., trying to make sense of how I gave them $72,000 and somehow ended up being the villain in their story. And that's just the setup. Trust me, it gets so much worse. That $2,000 started feeling less like helping family and more like feeding a black hole. You know that feeling when you're working out and you've got too much weight on the bar? Like you can still lift it, but your form is suffering and you know something's gonna give? That's how this felt. Every single month. My typical day starts at 4:30 a.m. I'm up before the sun, downing pre-workout and hitting golds by 5. Gotta stay sharp in this industry. Surgeons respect you more when you look like you've got your shit together. I'm usually the first one there, doing my routine under those flickering fluorescent lights while the morning crew is still setting up. By 7, I'm showered, suited up, and hitting the road. My territory covers 3 major hospitals and about a dozen smaller surgery centers. Here's what people don't get about medical device sales. It's not just schmoozing doctors. I'm in operating rooms, watching procedures, making sure my equipment works perfectly, because someone's life is literally on the line. One screw-up, one moment of not paying attention, and I could lose everything I've built. The pressure is insane. So yeah, maybe I get a little bitter when I'm standing in an OR for 6 hours straight, watching a complex spine surgery, knowing that $2,000 of my commission is going straight to my parents, while Jake's probably still in his pajamas, streaming Fortnite to his 12 followers. No joke, checked his Twitch stats once out of curiosity. Most views he ever got was 15, and pretty sure 3 of those were our cousins. The weekly family calls became this weird psychological warfare. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., like clockwork, Mom would start with the usual stuff. How's work? Am I eating right? Have I met anyone nice? But there was always this undertone, you know? This subtle guilt trip that got less subtle every week. Oh, Ryan, you work so hard. We're so proud of you. Translation: you make good money. Why aren't you sharing more? Jake's been making real progress with his channel. Translation: your brother needs better equipment. Hint, hint. The house needs some repairs, but we're managing. Translation: we're expecting next month's check on time. Meanwhile, Jake's voice would pipe up from the background. Yo, bro, you should check out my latest stream. Hit a new record for subscribers. Yeah, cool story, bro. Pretty sure going from 8 to 9 subs isn't exactly setting Twitch on fire. The thing that really gets me? I'd see his Amazon packages piling up on their porch when I'd visit. New gaming chair, LED lights for his studio, some ridiculous $300 microphone setup. All while I'm calculating how many surgeries I need to book to keep up with sending them money. I tried talking to my best friend Mike about it once, during our weekly BJJ session. Started taking classes 2 years ago. Best stress relief ever. He just looked at me like I was insane. Dude, you're basically paying your brother's allowance at 31. That's messed up. But here's the real kicker. I started noticing weird stuff on social media. Jake would post these long rants about fake successful people and how some folks peaked in high school. Pretty sure those were aimed at me, considering I was the captain of the wrestling team while he was trying to start an anime club. The worst part? Mom would like and comment on these posts. Stuff like, everyone has their own path, sweetie. Like, are you serious? You're endorsing this shit while cashing my checks? Then Jake started this whole entrepreneurship coach thing on Instagram. Posted a picture of himself in front of my Audi that I bought used, BITW, with some BS caption about manifesting success and building an empire. Had to tell him to take it down before my clients saw it. Could you imagine if a surgeon saw that and thought I was associated with his clown show? I started dreading those monthly transfers. Every time I'd hit send on my banking app, I'd feel this knot in my stomach. Started putting off stuff I needed. Delayed getting new suits for work, kept driving on tires that needed replacing, skipped a dental cleaning. All while watching Jake post about his latest investments in his streaming career. The real gut punch came during one of our Sunday calls. Mom was going on about how hard things were, and Jake chimes in with, "Yeah, but at least I'm here for mom and dad, not just throwing money at them from a distance." The audacity of this dude, sitting in their basement, contributing nothing, having the nerve to criticize me. So about a week before Christmas, I'm just finishing up a complicated knee replacement case. Shout out to Dr. Anderson, dude's a beast in the OR, when my phone starts blowing up. 3 missed calls from mom in the span of 20 minutes. For reference, my mom usually texts once and waits patiently for a response. Multiple calls means something's either really wrong or she's about to drop some serious manipulation. I step out of the OR, still in my surgical scrubs, and call her back. Her voice has that tone. You know the one. That sickly sweet, guilt-dripping tone that makes your stomach drop before she even gets to the point. "Ryan, sweetheart, I was just calling about Christmas dinner. Like she's summoning me to court or something. Now, let me paint you a picture of our usual family Christmas. Picture one of those Hallmark movies, then add a healthy dose of passive-aggressive comments, subtract all the joy, and multiply the tension by about 1,000. That's Christmas at my parents' house. But this year, something felt different. Don't forget how important family is, Ryan. We've all sacrificed so much." There it was. The S word. In my family, sacrifice is code for, "You better show up with your wallet open." Meanwhile, I can hear Jake in the background, probably streaming, his voice doing that fake excited YouTuber thing. "Don't forget to smash that like button, fam!" I'm standing there in the hospital hallway, still sweating from being in the OR for 4 hours, listening to my mom go on about family tradition while my 31-year-old brother is literally yelling about Twitch subscribers in the background. The contrast was so absurd I almost laughed. But here's where I fucked up. I decided to go big this year. Like, really big. I had just closed a massive deal with a new orthopedic group. Commission hadn't hit yet, but I knew it was coming, and I was feeling generous. Went to Best Buy and dropped $1,800 on this sick 65-inch OLED TV. Top of the line, perfect blacks, 120 Hz refresh rate. The kind of TV normal people look at and think, maybe next year. The sales guy at Best Buy, Kevin, cool dude, actually knows his tech, tried to talk me into the 55-inch instead. "Better value for money," he said. But no, I had to be the big shot. Had to prove something. Looking back, Kevin was trying to save me from myself. Kevin, if you're reading this, you were right, bro. While I'm picking out the TV, Jake's blowing up our family group chat with links to his latest streams. Almost at 100 followers. Narrator, he was not almost at 100 followers. Dad's responding with those generic dad emojis that he thinks make him look tech savvy. Mom's sending heart reactions to everything. Meanwhile, I'm dropping nearly $2,000 on a TV that'll probably end up being used to watch Jake's streams in cinematic quality. The weird thing was, Dad had been acting strange on our calls lately. Usually he's the chattier one, always wanting to talk about sports or complain about the neighbors. But lately, radio silence. He'd get on these family calls and just exist, like a statue that occasionally grunts in agreement with Mom. And Mom? She developed this new habit of ending every conversation with some cryptic comment about big changes coming or family pulling together. Real subtle, Mom. About as subtle as a sledgehammer to the face. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. Jake suddenly starting to clean up his streaming room, first time in probably years. Mom asking weirdly specific questions about my work schedule and commission structure. Dad's suspicious silence. It was like watching a horror movie where you're screaming at the protagonist not to go into the basement, except I was the dumbass walking down those stairs. The day before Christmas, I'm at the gym, because gains don't take holidays, and I get this text from Jake. "Yo, bro, can't wait to see you tomorrow. Got big news to share." First text he'd sent me directly in months that wasn't a stream link or a request to support the channel. That should have been the final red flag. But no, I'm there doing my deadlifts, thinking maybe he's finally grown up. Maybe he's got a real job. Maybe tomorrow won't be a complete shit show. I wrote this nice card about family and appreciation and all that Hallmark crap. Talked about how proud I was of them for getting through the tough times after their business closed. How I was happy I could help out. Real emotional stuff that probably ended up in the trash before the TV was even unboxed. Christmas morning started with the kind of winter chill that gets into your bones. I remember sitting in my car outside their house for a good 10 minutes, engine running, heat on full blast, just watching my breath fog up the windows. The Audi's leather seats were cold against my back, and that $1,800 TV was taking up so much space, I had to angle the rearview mirror just to see anything. It was barely 11 a.m., but I'd already hit the gym. Holiday gains are still gains. Meal prepped for the week, discipline doesn't take holidays. And wrapped that damn TV 3 times because the corners kept tearing. You know that scene in war movies where the soldier takes one last look at a photo before going into battle? That's how I felt checking my banking app, staring at that $2,000 transfer I'd made 2 days early as a Christmas surprise. 3 years of transfers, never missed one, never late. The things we do for family, right? The moment I walked up to their door, I knew something was off. You know how your childhood home has this specific smell? Like a mix of whatever your mom cooks and the fabric softener she's used since the 90s? That smell hit me like a wall, but there was something else in the air. Tension. The kind you can taste. Mom opened the door with what I call her real estate agent smile. All teeth, no warmth. She was wearing this Christmas sweater I'd bought her last year, probably for the guilt points. Barely made eye contact as she ushered me in, immediately disappearing into the kitchen with some excuse about checking the turkey. The living room looked like a Twitch streamer's idea of Christmas decor. Jake had apparently convinced them to set up RGB light strips along the ceiling. It's for the holiday aesthetic, Mom. His streaming setup was visible through the basement door. More lights, multiple monitors, and what looked like a new gaming chair. Cool to see where my support money was going. Dad was planted in his recliner, the same one he's had since I was in high school. He gave me this weird nod, like he was acknowledging a stranger at a gas station, not his son on Christmas morning. The TV was playing some basketball game, but his eyes were glued to his phone, probably checking Jake's latest subscriber count or whatever. Speaking of Jake, my brother made his grand entrance about 15 minutes after I arrived. Came strutting up from his basement lair wearing what had to be a knockoff Supreme hoodie and carrying his newest streaming accessory, some kind of professional camera setup that definitely wasn't in the budget I'd heard about. Yo, what's good, family? He had that fake YouTuber voice going, the one he uses in his streams. Probably force of habit at this point. Big bro, looking corporate as usual. That was a dig at my outfit. Nothing fancy, just a decent sweater and jeans. But apparently anything that's not covered in anime characters counts as corporate in Jake's world. The TV handoff was awkward as hell. I'd barely got the wrapping paper off when Jake started talking about how this would be perfect for his streaming room. Mom jumped in with some weak, "Oh, but it should stay in the living room, honey," while Dad just kept staring at his phone. Cool, cool. Just the $1,800 family TV becoming a Twitch backdrop. No big deal. Dinner started like a hostage negotiation. Everyone walking on eggshells, passing dishes with forced smiles. Mom's turkey was dry, but I was shoveling it down just to have something to do besides talk. The silence was thick enough to cut with the fancy knife set I'd bought them last Christmas, which, by the way, looked suspiciously unused. Then Jake dropped the bomb. Must be nice having all that extra cash while your family struggles. He said it with a mouthful of mashed potatoes, not even looking up from his plate. The words hung in the air like smoke, and I swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Before I could process that, Dad cleared his throat. You know that sound people make when they're about to say something they've rehearsed? Yeah, that one. Son, we need to talk about the monthly support. I remember putting my fork down, real slow, like in those movies where you know shit's about to go down. Mom's hands were fidgeting with her napkin, a tell she's had since I was a kid. Jake had this smirk on his face that I wanted to wipe off with his knockoff Supreme hoodie. We think it's time to adjust the amount, Dad continued, still not making eye contact. Given the current situation, we believe $4,000 would be more appropriate. $4,000. I didn't choke on my food, but it was close. The turkey suddenly felt like sandpaper in my throat. All I could think about was the basic math. That's $48,000 a year. More than some nurses make. More than a lot of people make. Jake needs some startup capital for his career, Mom chimed in, like she was asking me to pass the gravy instead of double my financial support. The streaming industry is very competitive, and proper equipment is essential. I looked around the table. At my dad's new smartwatch. When did he get that? At Jake's designer hoodie. Fake or not, that stuff isn't cheap. At the RGB lit room that looked more like a gaming cafe than my childhood home. 3 years of my support, of working extra cases, of skipping vacations, of putting off my own life, and this is what it came to. That's when Jake, my dear brother, decided to really twist the knife. Yeah, bro, not everyone can sell out for a corporate job. Some of us are trying to build something real here. You ever have one of those moments where you can actually feel your blood pressure rising? Where you can hear your heartbeat in your ears? Where everything gets kind of quiet and sharp at the same time? Yeah. Welcome to my Christmas. I told them I will think about it, and just left. After that Christmas disaster, I spent the next few days in a fog. You know that feeling after a bad breakup where everything feels slightly unreal? Like that, but worse because it's your own family that just tried to financially hijack you. I threw myself into work, picked up extra cases. Shout out to the ER docs who actually appreciate someone showing up at 3 a.m. for emergency surgeries, and practically lived at the gym. Speaking of the gym, that's where everything started unraveling. 3 days after Christmas, I'm at this bougie fitness center near the hospital. It's one of those places with actual towel service and water that comes in glass bottles. The kind of place I'd never have dreamed of joining before this job. I justify the expensive membership because it's where a lot of the surgeons work out. And in medical device sales, relationships are everything. I'm in the middle of my deadlift set, 545 for reps, since everyone keeps DMing me about my routine. When I hear someone call my name, look up to see Mike Peterson, this guy I went to high school with. Mike's in real estate now, does high-end properties in our area. We do that awkward, I'm trying to be friendly, but also I'm drenched in sweat conversation that happens at gyms. Then he says something that makes me drop the barbell mid-rep. Hey, saw your parents last week. They're looking at some sweet vacation properties down in Florida. Must be nice to retire in style, right? The sound of 545 pounds hitting the platform got some looks, but I barely noticed. Vacation properties? Florida? What the actual fuck? What do you mean vacation properties? I managed to ask, trying to sound casual while my brain was short-circuiting. Mike, bless his unsuspecting heart, just keeps going. Oh yeah, they're looking at this nice community near Naples. Pretty high-end stuff. They mentioned something about selling their business for a good chunk of change a few months back. Smart move in this market. I must have looked like I was having a stroke, because Mike quickly changed the subject to asking about protein powder recommendations. But the damage was done. My parents, who I'd been supporting for 3 years because they lost everything in the pandemic, had apparently sold their business and were shopping for vacation homes. Part of being successful in medical device sales is being able to investigate and network. So I did what any betrayed son with a lot of professional contacts would do. I started digging. First call was to Tom, my buddy who works at the bank where my parents have their business accounts. We play poker together monthly, and he owed me for covering his buy-in last game. Hey man, weird question, but what happened to that antique restoration business on Oak Street? Tom's response was interesting. Really interesting. Oh yeah, they sold it in September. Pretty good deal from what I heard. Why? September. They sold the business in September, 3 months ago, while still cashing my $2,000 checks. Next call was to Sarah, who works at the real estate office handling commercial properties in our area. We dated briefly last year, ended things amicably. Hey, remember that furniture restoration shop my parents owned? Any idea what it sold for? She couldn't give me exact numbers, confidentiality and all that, but she did drop a hint. Let's just say they won't be worrying about bills for a while. But here's where it gets really good. Remember Jake's streaming setup? Those fancy new electronics? That professional camera? I started going through his Amazon reviews. Yes, he actually reviews everything he buys like he's some tech influencer. The timestamps on his purchases lined up perfectly with my monthly transfers. They weren't using my money for bills. They were funding Jake's wannabe influencer lifestyle. I went full detective mode. Started pulling up old text messages, bank statements, everything. Made a spreadsheet, yeah, I'm that guy, tracking when I sent money versus when Jake suddenly got new streaming equipment. The pattern was so obvious it was almost funny, except it wasn't funny at all. Remember that Christmas sweater mom was wearing? The one I bought her last year? Found the exact same one listed for sale on her Facebook marketplace. Posted 2 days after Christmas. Description, new with tags, unwanted gift. I spent 3 years sending them $2,000 a month. That's $72,000 total. For perspective, that's more than a down payment on a decent house. The cost of a Tesla Model 3. 4 years of in-state college tuition, 36,000 cups of coffee, which I clearly needed to wake up and see what was happening. And what did they do with it? Funded Jake's pipe dreams and apparently went house hunting in Florida. The real gut punch? Found an old email thread between my parents and their business broker from August. They hadn't lost everything during the pandemic. They'd actually pivoted to online sales and done pretty well. The business sold because they wanted to retire, not because they were struggling. Everything. The sad phone calls, the guilt trips, the stories about struggling to pay bills. It was all a script. A long con, written and performed by my own family, with me as the unwitting ATM. You ever have one of those moments where you're so angry that everything becomes crystal clear? Like weirdly calm, but in an I might actually flip a table kind of way? That was me, pulling up to my parents' house at 8:06 p.m. on a Tuesday night, still wearing my suit from a day of surgical cases. I'd spent the afternoon in a complex spinal fusion, watching a surgeon literally reconstruct someone's backbone. Funny how life gives you these little metaphors, right? Because that's exactly what I needed. A backbone. My Audi's headlights lit up their garage door like a spotlight. Dad's new car was there. A fresh BMW 3 Series that apparently manifested out of their struggling finances. Real subtle, guys. Really selling that poverty narrative. Still had my key. Ironic, given how they'd locked me out emotionally years ago. The house was warm, TV going in the living room, my TV, the $1,800 OLED I'd bought them for Christmas, now playing some Twitch stream. Jake's stream, to be specific. Because of course it was. Mom was in her reading chair, scrolling through Zillow, probably checking Florida property prices. Dad was pretending to read the newspaper while actually watching Jake's stream on his phone. And there was Jake himself, sprawled on the couch like some wannabe tech mogul, talking into his new microphone about building an authentic brand to his dozen viewers. The family tableau. Picture perfect. Until I dropped a thick manila envelope on the coffee table. We need to talk. Jake actually jumped. Mom's phone slipped from her hands. Dad. Dad just got very still, like prey animals do when they spot a predator. They knew. They all knew exactly what was in that envelope. Ryan, honey, we weren't expecting, Mom started, but I cut her off. Clearly. I pulled out the first document. So, funny story. Ran into Mike Peterson at the gym. You remember Mike? Real estate guy? He mentioned something interesting about vacation properties in Florida. The color drained from Mom's face. Dad suddenly found his newspaper fascinating. But that got me thinking, why would my struggling parents who need $2,000 a month to survive be looking at vacation homes? So I did some digging. I started laying out papers like dealing cards, business sale documents from September, bank statements, Jake's Amazon purchase history, even found your old email threads with the business broker. Jake tried to interrupt. Bro, you're making this weird. I'm making this weird. The laugh that came out of me didn't sound entirely sane. You literally wrote, convince R to increase monthly support on your content strategy board. I saw the Instagram post, Jake. Real professional, by the way. Really selling that influencer lifestyle. Mom tried damage control. Sweetheart, we can explain... Explain what? How you sold the business for a profit while telling me you were struggling? How you used my money to fund Jake's midlife crisis? Or maybe explain this... I pulled out a printed screenshot of her Facebook Marketplace listing, the Christmas sweater I'd bought her. At least wait until I leave before reselling my gifts, Mom. Dad finally spoke up, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he used when we were kids. Now listen here. No, you listen. 3 years of suppressed rage has a way of making your voice carry. I spent 3 years sending you $72,000. I skipped vacations, delayed buying a house, put off my own life, and the whole time, you were lying to me. Jake made the mistake of smirking. Not our fault you're dumb enough to... I took one step toward him. Just one. But those BJJ classes must have shown in my movement, because he literally sank deeper into the couch. Funny how a basement-dwelling streamer loses his nerve when confronted by someone who doesn't just talk tough in a gaming chair. I've got an itemized list of everything you bought with my money, I continued, pulling out more papers. The streaming equipment, Dad's BMW, the Florida property viewings. Even found the receipt for Jake's fake Supreme merch. Real, authentic brand building there, bro. Mom was crying now. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen before, but real ones. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Jake was trying to disappear into the couch cushions. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady. The monthly transfers stop today. I've already set up alerts with my bank. Any attempts to guilt trip me, manipulate me, or squeeze more money out of me will result in me posting every single piece of evidence I have online. Every receipt, every lie, every manipulation. I'm sure Jake's 12 followers would love to see how authentic his brand really is. The silence was deafening. Even Jake's stream chat had gone quiet, probably wondering why their favorite content creator was suddenly looking like he'd seen a ghost. Ryan, please, Mom tried one last time. We're family. No, I replied, gathering my documents. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't lie, manipulate, and steal from each other. You're not my family. You're just people who saw me as an ATM. I walked out, leaving them with their fake Supreme merch, their BMW payments, and their Florida dream homes. The last thing I heard was Jake's stream notification. Dank Memer 420 has unfollowed. Perfect fucking ending. Final update. It's been 6 months since the confrontation. And let me tell you how it all went down after I cut them off financially. First, Jake's streaming career imploded. Turns out when you can't keep buying new equipment and paying for bot followers, it's hard to maintain the illusion of success. His subscriber count, the real ones, not the bots, dropped from his peak of 15 to a solid 3. Pretty sure one of those is his alt account. Then, the truth about their struggling business started spreading in our community. Remember my friend Mike from the gym? Turns out real estate agents talk. A lot. Soon everyone knew how they'd sold the business for a profit while still taking money from their son. The looks they get at church must be interesting. The Florida dream home? Gone. Their realtor friend, who's now my realtor friend, funny how that works, told me they had to pull out of all property viewings. Apparently their retirement fund wasn't as robust as they thought once they lost their monthly Ryan supplement. But here's the best part. 3 weeks ago, I'm finishing up a complex case at the hospital. 12-hour surgery. The kind that reminds you why you got into medical device sales in the first place. Saving lives, making a difference, all that good stuff. I check my work email afterward, and there it is. A message from Mom sent to my company email, because I'd blocked her everywhere else. The subject line? We need to talk. Urgent family matter. The email was a masterpiece of desperation. Turns out Jake's car wasn't the only thing they bought on credit. That BMW Dad was so proud of, also financed. The new furniture they bought for their imaginary Florida home? Credit cards. They'd been living large on the assumption that their personal ATM, me, would keep dispensing cash. Now they're drowning in debt. Real debt. Not the fake kind they pretended to have before. Jake had to sell his streaming setup piece by piece on eBay. Saw the listings. It's painful how much technology depreciates. He's working at GameStop now, which would be ironic if it wasn't so sad. Apparently, telling customers why they should buy the extended warranty isn't quite as glamorous as being a Twitch star. Mom's email ended with a proposal. If I agreed to help them temporarily with their bills, they'd give me partial ownership of their house. You know, the house they claimed they might lose? The one that's probably mortgaged to hell by now? Hard pass. I sent back a one-line reply. New phone. Who dis? Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Last I heard, Jake's trying to rebrand himself as a financial advisor on TikTok, because apparently giving advice about money is his thing now. His first video? How to build wealth through family connections. The audacity is almost impressive. Mom still sends the occasional text from new numbers. Last one said they're ready to rebuild our relationship on new terms. Yeah, the terms where their ATM got shut down and they actually have to live within their means. Tough terms, those. The TV I bought them for Christmas? They tried to sell it on Facebook Marketplace last week. Listed it as, like new, barely used, $2,000 OBO. Kinda like our relationship. They tried to squeeze more value out of it than it was worth, and ended up with nothing. Story 3. My fiancé posted a selfie with a guy, captioned, upgraded. I didn't reply. I canceled everything and sent the screenshot to her parents. Her whole family blew up my phone while I sat there relaxing. Alright, Reddit. This story's gonna make you want to yeet your phone out of the window, but it gets satisfying. Grab your popcorn already. I'm 28 male, run tower cranes in Manhattan. Union gig, $38 an hour plus overtime. You know, actual work where you show up at 6 a.m. and build real stuff. Been slinging steel for 6 years now, mostly high-rises in Midtown and Financial District. 2 years back, I met Valencia, 26 female, at my boy's housewarming in Queens. She was this bubbly social media manager chick who could turn ordering a damn latte into viral content. We clicked right away. She was funny, hot, and had this energy that made everyone feel like they were in some movie or whatever. The guys at work ribbed me about dating someone whose job was playing on the internet all day, but I shut that down quick. My crew chief Rico actually met her once and said, "Kids got more hustle than half the guys I supervise." Coming from Rico, That was basically a marriage endorsement. Should have been red flag number one right there. But I was hooked. Maybe a simp too. Whatever, it's in the past. We moved in together after 8 months to this decent spot in Astoria, got engaged 6 months ago, and started planning this October wedding like we were coordinating D-Day. 23 grand down the drain. Venue booked upstate, photographer locked down, the whole 9 yards. The photographer alone was $2,800 because Valencia needed someone who understood her aesthetic. I even let her talk me into those stupid sparkler send-off things because it'll look sick on Instagram. My older sister Sienna, 31 female, actually warned me saying I was rushing into marriage. Axel, you barely know this girl. She treats real life like it's one big photo shoot. But what the hell did Sienna know? She'd been married 7 years to some firefighter in Brooklyn and actually seemed happy. Clearly she was missing something. Zach, my best buddy, was more chill about it. Bro, she makes you laugh and she's hot as hell. What else you need? Zach worked construction like me, ran excavators for the same union. His relationship philosophy was pretty simple. Don't overthink it. Yeah, I guess we were both simps. Valencia worked for different fitness influencers, managing their Instagrams, setting up brand deals, basically turning gym selfies into mortgage payments. Her biggest client was some yoga chick with 50,000 followers who sold $89 personalized workout plans to bored suburban moms. The plans were all the same template with different names slapped on them, but apparently that counted as personalization. Decent money though, and she seemed to actually like it. The first year was solid. We traveled, laughed a lot, intimate stuff was great too, and she posted about us maybe twice a week. I'd roll in from job sites around 4, she'd wrap up her work-from-home social media stuff around 6, and we'd actually hang out like normal people. But around month 18, shit got weird. She started obsessing over likes and comments, spending hours trying to figure out why one post got 200 likes while another only got 150. She'd retake the same selfie like 15 times, adjusting the lighting and angles like she was documenting the Great Depression. Babe, it's just Instagram, I'd say. Just Instagram? Axel, this is my career. Personal brand. For someone who managed other people's accounts. That should have been red flag number 2, but I'm apparently slow on the uptake. She started buying ring lights and backdrop setups, turning our bedroom into a makeshift photo studio. I'd come home to find her rearranging furniture for optimal natural lighting and practicing facial expressions in the mirror. The bathroom counter looked like a Sephora exploded. The engagement started out fine. She posted exactly one ring photo with the caption, "Said yes to my best friend." And I actually thought that was pretty cool. Wedding planning was mostly her thing. I just showed up to eat cake samples and nod at flower arrangements. But then Valencia started stressing about the wedding content. She wanted a videographer, a social media coordinator, and kept talking about maximizing the authentic moments. What if we don't get enough good footage? She'd worry. Then we'll just have to settle for actually enjoying our wedding, I'd say back, which apparently made me a digital caveman. Then, 3 months before the wedding, everything went to shit. Valencia landed her biggest client yet, Bryce freaking Myers. Bryce Myers was everything I wasn't. Fitness model, 200K Instagram followers, the kind of douchebag who probably called himself an entrepreneur while hawking sketchy supplements that definitely weren't FDA approved. Had that fake spray tan and teeth so white they could guide ships through fog. He was launching some fitness app called Transform X and needed someone to manage his rapid expansion into lifestyle brand territory. Valencia was over the freaking moon. This was her big break, the client who'd make her a serious player in influencer marketing. Axel, this could change everything. Bryce is projected to hit 500,000 followers by Christmas. If I help him get there, I can start charging premium rates. That's awesome, babe. Just remember we got a wedding to plan? She waved me off like I was some fly. The wedding practically plans itself at this point. Famous last words. Within a week, Bryce consumed her entire existence. She was putting in 12-hour days, constantly on calls, completely absorbed in his brand strategy. When I'd try to talk about wedding shit, she'd get pissed. Can we talk about centerpieces later? Bryce needs me to analyze his target demographic's engagement patterns. Zach noticed the change immediately. Dude, your girl's acting strange. She used to actually talk to people at parties. Now she just stares at her phone like it's gonna give her the meaning of life. Sienna was more direct. That guy's gonna be trouble. I can smell the boundary violations from here. Sienna had this annoying habit of being right about people. The first time I met Bryce was at some fitness expo in Manhattan that Valencia dragged me to. He was exactly what I expected. 6 feet 2 inches, perfectly sculpted, with that fake tan that required professional maintenance. When Valencia introduced us, he gave me this weird handshake while staring me down like we were about to fight over the last piece of chicken. His hands were softer than my girlfriend's. So, you're Axel. Val talks about you all the time. Construction, right? That's cool, man. I could never do manual labor all day. Value. Jerk was already using nicknames. Actually, I run tower cranes. It's precision work, plus union pays solid. Oh, for sure, bro. Different strokes. I'm more of an inspiration guy, you know? Building something real. Inspiring people to transform their lives. Dude kept checking his reflection in every mirrored surface while he talked, adjusting his hair and flexing his jaw like he was constantly posing for invisible cameras. Bro couldn't hold a conversation without monitoring his angles. I wanted to point out that I literally built the freaking skyline he posed in front of for his thirst traps, but Valencia was giving me those don't you dare looks. Bryce kept checking his phone every 30 seconds, probably monitoring his engagement metrics. After he walked away, she immediately went into damage control mode. He's actually really smart and incredibly driven. He built his whole platform from scratch. By posting shirtless pics, it's called content strategy. Not everyone can understand the complexity of personal branding. That night, she spent 3 hours editing photos from the expo. When I went to bed, she was still hunched over her laptop, color correcting Bryce's abs like she was working on the Sistine Chapel. Over the next few weeks, Bryce became the third wheel in our relationship. Every conversation eventually circled back to his latest brilliant marketing idea or ambitious expansion plan. Bryce thinks I should start my own agency. Bryce says the future of fitness is community-based platforms. Bryce thinks this. Bryce says that. I started fantasizing about punting Bryce's beliefs into the next freaking dimension. The late night started 2 weeks after they began working together. I'd get home from the job site at 4, and Valencia would still be out at emergency strategy sessions and time-sensitive brand opportunities, not rolling in until 10 p.m., looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Why can't this shit wait until tomorrow? I'm up at 5 for work. Axel, you don't understand the influencer space. Timing is everything. If Bryce doesn't post his workout content within 4 hours of filming, the algorithm buries it. The algorithm. Right. Like it was some mystical force. She started hitting Bryce's gym for research. This wasn't her usual Planet Fitness either. Bryce worked out at some bougie place in Tribeca that charged $300 a month. I need to understand the authentic experience, Axel. Bryce's audience can tell when content isn't genuine. 2 weeks before everything went nuclear, Valencia's wardrobe changed. Suddenly, she was wearing sports bras to the freaking grocery store and yoga pants that looked painted on. New look? It's part of the job. Bryce's demographic responds better to fitness-oriented styling. You're not even in his content. Sometimes I am. Behind-the-scenes stuff. She was talking about buying groceries like it was a marketing campaign. Zach started calling her Valencia 2.0 and asking if she came with a factory reset button. Sienna stopped asking about wedding plans altogether and started making divorce lawyer jokes. When this thing blows up, Sienna said over coffee, don't let her take half your shit. Document everything. You're being dramatic. Am I? Because your fiancé is basically dating another dude for professional reasons, and you're acting like it's totally normal. I wasn't acting like it was normal. I was trying to be the supportive boyfriend who trusted his girlfriend's professional judgment. And part of me was trying to prove I wasn't insecure as she called me every time I called out BS. Classic mistake, fellas. The Thursday before my world imploded, Valencia announced she'd be working late with Bryce on some urgent campaign launch. How late are we talking? Probably midnight, maybe later. This is make or break stuff, Axel. She kissed my cheek and bounced, taking an overnight bag just in case. At the time, I thought she was being practical. Turns out she was being transparent as hell. Friday night, I was at Zach's place in Sunnyside, watching the Yankees get their rear ends handed to them and drinking. We were down 6-2 in the 7th when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification around 9 p.m. Valencia tagged you in a story. I opened Instagram expecting some boring work post. Instead, I got a front row seat to my own public humiliation. There was Valencia, glowing, leaning into Bryce at some upscale restaurant I definitely couldn't afford. It looked like one of those places where they serve appetizers on slate boards and charge $28 for 3 scallops. His arm was wrapped around her, both of them grinning like they'd just won the lottery. The caption said upgraded, and she'd tagged me directly, making sure I'd see it right away. Zach looked over and went dead silent for about 10 seconds. Then, holy shit, dude. Please tell me this is some kind of social media experiment gone wrong. I screenshot that story because I knew I was going to need evidence for what came next. What are you going to do? My hands were shaking. Not going to lie. Seeing your fiance wrapped up with another dude hits different than you'd expect. Part of me wanted to drive to that restaurant and cause a scene, but the rational part knew that would just make me look like the crazy ex. Plus, she'd probably live stream the whole thing. My first instinct was to call her immediately, probably scream until my voice gave out. But then something clicked in my brain. She'd just told me everything I already knew in the back of my mind, yet justified it. She'd found someone better, upgraded, and wanted to make damn sure everyone knew about it. So instead of calling her, I started making my own moves. Zach, I need you to help me with something. Anything, man. This is freaking brutal. I'm gonna handle this the right way. Can you drive me to Home Depot? Home Depot? Why? I need moving boxes. A lot of them. While Zach went to grab boxes, I called my buddy Finn who does family law. Finn had helped me when I bought my co-op and knew his shit inside and out. I sent him the screenshot and explained the situation. Dude, that's basically a public announcement that your relationship is over. If you handle this smart, you can probably minimize your losses on the wedding expenses. How smart we talking? Document everything. Send this image to every vendor. Most will classify this as abandonment by the other party, which totally changes cancellation terms. Plus, New York's pretty strict about fraud in wedding contracts. If one party publicly declares the relationship over, it's breach of contract. Next call. Valencia's dad, Victor. We'd always gotten along great. He was a no-nonsense guy who had zero patience for social media garbage. Victor, I need you to see something Valencia posted today. I texted him the screenshot. Long pause. Son, who the hell is this guy? Someone she works with. Based on the caption, our engagement's over. What do you mean? You're getting married in 3 months. Not anymore, Victor. Another pause. Let me call Valencia and figure out what the hell is going on. Don't bother. The post's pretty clear. That night, I didn't hear Jack from Valencia. She didn't come home, didn't text, nothing. Apparently, she was too busy celebrating her upgrade to remember she had a fiancé waiting at home. Saturday morning, I woke up to a text from Valencia. Stayed at Jade's last night. Bryce's campaign ran super late, and I was too exhausted to drive home. See you later today. Funny how she was still lying to my face. Zach showed up at 10 a.m. with coffee and a grim expression. How you holding up? Better than expected. I got a plan. Please tell me it involves making Bryce disappear into the Hudson River. Not yet. But we're canceling a wedding today. I spent Saturday destroying 2 years of wedding planning, and it felt freaking amazing. Called the venue first. Riverside Manor, this is Natasha. Hi, Natasha. This is Axel Williams. I have a wedding booked for October 15th. Unfortunately, I need to discuss cancellation. My fiance posted something on social media yesterday that changes our situation. I sent her the screenshot. Oh my goodness. Let me review this with management and call you back within the hour. Same conversation with every vendor. Photographer, caterer, florist, band, even the sparkler company. Explain the situation. Send the screenshot. Ask about refund options. The florist was actually relieved. Apparently, Valencia had been calling them twice a week, changing her mind about centerpieces, like she was planning a state dinner. While I was torching our wedding plans, Valencia was apparently having her own meltdown. Zach got texts from mutual friends saying she was posting weird cryptic stories about haters and people who don't understand success. She'd also started commenting on Bryce's posts with shit like partnership goals and building empires together. By Saturday evening, my phone was blowing up with texts from Valencia's family. Her mom, Marianne. Axel, what is this photo? What's happening? Call me right now. We need to talk about this immediately. This is unacceptable behavior, and I demand an explanation. Her sister, Chloe. Oh my God, Axel. You better not be spreading lies about my sister. I ignored all their asses. They could sort out their family drama without me. But Marianne wasn't done. She kept calling from different numbers, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails. Axel, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this stops now. You will not embarrass this family with your jealous rumors. Call me back or I'm driving over there. Meanwhile, Chloe had apparently appointed herself Valencia's social media defense attorney. She started posting on Facebook about how some men can't handle strong, successful women, and how my amazing sister is building an empire while small minds try to tear her down. She was tagging mutual friends in posts about toxic masculinity and supporting women in business. Valencia was calling everyone we knew, demanding they pick sides. Sienna got a call around dinner time where Valencia screamed about how I was sabotaging her career and couldn't handle her success. She called me laughing her ass off. Dude, your ex-fiancé is completely unhinged. She called me a jealous witch because I wouldn't tell her where you were. What did you say? I told her you were probably busy dodging bullets. Sunday morning brought callbacks from most vendors. Natasha from the venue called first. Given the evidence you provided, we're classifying this as abandonment by the other party. We can refund 75% of your payments, which comes to $4,200. The photographer was even better. That Instagram post is really messed up. We're refunding your full deposit plus the $500 engagement shoot fee. My wife said if I didn't after seeing that, she'd divorce me too. The caterer refunded $3,100 out of $4,500. The florist gave back everything except a $200 consultation fee. Even the DJ was cool about it. Apparently, he'd had other couples break up over social media drama and knew the warning signs. All told, I recovered about $16,100 of the $23,000 we'd blown. Way better than expected, and cheaper than divorce. But Valencia wasn't done with her public meltdown. She'd started a freaking Instagram live session Sunday afternoon, crying and ranting about how some people can't support women in business. The comment section was brutal. People calling her out for the upgraded post, asking where her fiancé went, and generally roasting her for being a train wreck. One comment that got a bunch of likes: supporting women in business doesn't mean supporting cheaters. Zach screen recorded the whole mess. Bro, she's completely lost it. She just spent 20 minutes explaining how posting about dating other men is normal business networking. Sunday evening, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Axel, we need to talk. It was Valencia, but her voice was different. No need, your post covered everything pretty clearly. You have no freaking idea what you've done. Bryce is furious. My family won't stop calling. And now vendors are saying you canceled our wedding? Yeah, that tends to happen when you publicly humiliate yourself. That post was business, Axel. Business. But you're too stupid to understand marketing. I am not stupid to take your BS anymore. That hit a nerve. OMG, you're pathetic. You know that? You couldn't handle me being successful, so you sabotaged everything like a freaking child. I sabotaged your success by reading the post you tagged me in? You sent that screenshot to my parents. What kind of psycho does that? The kind who gets publicly humiliated by his fiancé and wants some freaking answers. I don't owe you shit for explanations. We're done, Axel. Done. And I'm keeping the ring. Already had it appraised. It's coming out of your half of the security deposit. You can't freaking do that. Watch me. Also, thanks for leaving your iPad logged into your iCloud. Those text messages with Bryce about relationship marketing strategies are going to look great in court. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. Dead silence. She hadn't realized I'd seen Bryce coaching her on how to create authentic romantic tension for content and build audience investment in the storyline. Apparently, our relationship was just another campaign to them. You have no right to cancel vendors without my permission. This is illegal. Watch me. Screw you. I'm calling a lawyer. Good luck with that. She kept screaming about how I was ruining her life and destroying her reputation. Apparently, Bryce was threatening to drop her because the drama was affecting his brand metrics. Bryce says this makes us both look unprofessional. Maybe you should have thought about that before fake dating your client for content. It wasn't fake dating. Then what the hell was it? Dead silence. Then, you're going to regret this, bro. You're going to regret. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Looking forward to it. I hung up and blocked that number too. Here's where shit gets interesting. Finn called me Wednesday with news that made my whole week. Axel, I've been thinking about your situation. That Instagram post might constitute intentional infliction of emotional distress, especially given the public nature and the wedding timeline. You think I got a case? Possibly. But more importantly, I think Bryce might have legal exposure. If he encouraged her to post relationship content for his brand benefit, knowing she was engaged, that's tortious interference with a contractual relationship. Meaning what exactly? Meaning you could potentially sue Bryce's ass for damages related to the wedding cancellation? I'd been so focused on Valencia, but Bryce was the puppet master behind this whole mess. Finn, let's freaking explore this. While I was building a legal case, Valencia was apparently spiraling harder than a kamikaze pilot. She'd created a whole new Instagram account called Authentic Val, where she posted daily rants about toxic men and people who don't support women's ambitions. The account had like 43 followers, but she was posting multiple times a day like she was running CNN. Zach showed me screenshots. One post, when you're building empires and small minds can't handle your vision. Leveling up by Felicia. Another, some people would rather tear down queens than build themselves up. Bryce and I are thriving while haters cancel weddings. She was also showing up to Bryce's gym unannounced, taking selfies and posting them with captions like power couple energy and when your business partner becomes your best friend. Bryce looked uncomfortable as hell in every photo, like he was being held hostage. But here's where Bryce screwed himself. He kept posting content with Valencia. Stories at the gym, posts about their work relationship, even a few photos that looked suspiciously coupley for business partners. Zach did some digging and found Bryce's business registration, tax info, and discovered he'd been promoting the upgraded post as successful viral marketing on his professional channels. Dude, this jerk has been bragging to other influencers about how he got his social media manager to fake date him for engagement. There's a whole thread about it on some marketing forum. Screenshots of Bryce explaining his relationship marketing strategy to other influencers were pure freaking gold. He'd literally admitted to encouraging Valencia to post relationship content for brand benefit, knowing she was engaged to someone else. Meanwhile, Valencia had started commenting on all my friends' social media posts. She left a paragraph-long comment on Zach's gym selfie about how real friends don't enable toxic masculinity and some people can't handle successful women. Zach deleted it and blocked her, but she created another account and kept going like some kind of digital stalker. We filed suit against Bryce for $50,000 in damages, $23,000 in wedding deposits, $15,000 in emotional distress, $8,000 in lost wages from dealing with this mess, and $4,000 in legal fees. Turns out missing workdays as a crane operator to handle legal shit is expensive. Union jobs don't mess around with attendance. I'd already burned 3 personal days and had to take 2 unpaid days. Bryce's lawyer tried to settle immediately for $15,000. We countered at $40,000. His lawyer came back with $25,000. Finn advised we push harder. This guy's shitting his pants, Finn said. His Instagram's restricted. The FTC's breathing down his neck about his supplements, and we have documentation of everything. He wants this gone yesterday. Finn also discovered Bryce had been pulling this same stunt with other clients. We found 2 other women on fitness forums talking about how Bryce had encouraged them to post relationship content with him for brand synergy, both while they were in committed relationships. One girl's boyfriend had left her over it. The other nearly got divorced. We reached out to both of them, and suddenly Bryce was looking at a potential class action lawsuit. We rejected $25,000 and held firm at $40,000. But the real nuclear option came from Sienna, who worked in corporate communications for a media company in Manhattan. Axel, I've been watching this Bryce Jerks content. He's been promoting some supplement that's not FDA approved and making medical claims about weight loss. So I reported him to the FTC for false advertising. Also sent screenshots to Instagram about his fake engagement schemes. Within 48 hours, Bryce's Instagram account got temporarily restricted pending review, and the FTC opened an investigation into his supplement marketing. His Transform X app launch got postponed indefinitely while lawyers scrambled to contain the damage. That's when Zach pulled his masterstroke. Remember how Bryce was always posting at the gym, flexing and giving motivation to his followers? Zach worked construction, so he had access to orange safety vests, hard hats, and work boots. He showed up to Bryce's gym wearing full construction gear, found Bryce mid-workout selfie session, and loudly said, "Excuse me, are you Bryce Myers? I'm here about the building project." "What building project?" Bryce asked, confused but still holding his phone up for the perfect angle. "The one where you're gonna build some personality instead of just taking shirtless photos all day?" The entire gym went dead silent. Then people started cracking up. Someone in the background yelled, "Boom! Roasted!" Zach walked out like nothing happened, but not before someone recorded the whole thing and posted it to TikTok. Bryce never posted another gym selfie after that. That's when Valencia completely lost her damn mind. She started calling Zach, Sienna, even my coworkers, screaming about how we were all conspiring against her success. She left a voicemail for my foreman claiming I was mentally unstable and shouldn't be operating heavy machinery. The kicker? Chloe, Valencia's sister, doubled down on social media, posting a Facebook essay titled, "When Men Can't Handle Your Shine," with a whole paragraph about how certain people use legal intimidation when they're threatened by female success. She was sharing articles about toxic masculinity and tagging me in posts about supporting women entrepreneurs. Marianne, her mom, escalated to calling my job site directly, demanding to speak to my supervisor about my erratic behavior and harassment of a young professional woman. She also started leaving Yelp reviews for vendors who'd refunded our deposits, claiming they were unprofessional and allowed a disturbed man to cancel legitimate contracts. My foreman called me laughing his ass off. Dude, your crazy ex thinks we give a shit about your personal drama. I told her if she calls again, we're filing harassment charges. Oh, and her mom called too. Real piece of work. Kept demanding I fire you for emotional instability. Sienna got a voicemail. You jealous witch. You can't stand that I'm building something real while you're stuck in your boring marriage. Axel's going to realize what he lost. You will see. Real classy, Sienna said. I forwarded it to her parents. 6 weeks after the Instagram story heard round the world, Bryce settled for $35,000. His legal fees probably cost him another $20,000. His account was still restricted. The FTC fined him $12,000 for supplement advertising violations, and his Transform X app never launched. Word got around the fitness influencer community that he was toxic to work with, and clients started dropping him like a bad habit. The final nail in his coffin came when one of his former clients leaked screenshots of him bragging about his relationship manipulation tactics in a private WhatsApp group for fitness influencers. Turns out he'd been coaching multiple people on how to leverage romantic tension for engagement, calling it his secret sauce for viral content. The fitness community tore him apart. Valencia lost her biggest client and had to move back in with her parents when she couldn't make rent on the Astoria apartment. Word spread through the influencer community about what had happened, and apparently most potential clients weren't interested in hiring someone who'd torpedo their personal life for engagement metrics. She'd also gotten herself banned from 3 different gyms for disrupting the environment. Apparently, she'd been showing up places Bryce worked out, taking unauthorized photos and making scenes when staff asked her to leave. The Tribeca gym, where she used to do research, issued a formal trespassing warning. Victor, her dad, called me one final time. Axel, I owe you a serious apology. I saw some text messages. You were right about everything. Don't worry, Victor. I also owe you an apology for Marianne and Chloe. I had no idea they were harassing you in your workplace until your foreman called me directly. What did you do? I sat both of them down and explained exactly what Valencia had done. Marianne kept making excuses, saying boys will be boys, and Bryce probably manipulated her. Chloe insisted you were just jealous of Valencia's success. And so I showed them the text messages. Bryce telling Valencia to play up the romance angle and create some relationship drama for engagement. Then I asked Chloe how she'd feel if her husband was getting those kinds of messages from his female client. Chloe shut the hell up real quick. Marianne tried to say it was still just business, so I asked her how she'd react if I posted photos with my arms around other women for my construction business networking. I was grinning. I bet that changed her tune. She went dead silent. Then I told them both that if I heard about them harassing you, your friends, or your workplace again, they could find somewhere else to live. Chloe deleted all her Facebook posts that night. For what it's worth, I think you handled this perfectly. Victor turned out to be the only sane person in that whole family. He sent me a check covering my legal fees with a note. Sorry my daughter turned out to be an idiot. Zach threw me a screw Bryce party 2 months later. Sienna made a cake shaped like an Instagram story with upgraded, crossed out, and dodged a bullet written underneath. I started dating again around Christmas. Matched with Delilah, a veterinarian who thought Instagram was fine for keeping up with family, and whose idea of content creation was sending me pictures of particularly cute dogs at work. She had 247 followers and posted maybe twice a month, usually her hiking boots or a coffee cup. Revolutionary concept. A woman who lived in the actual real world. I knew I'd found the right one. Delilah had her shit together and thought taking photos of your dinner was kind of weird unless it's really exceptional food. The contrast was night and day. Delilah would rather spend Saturday morning hiking than staging photo shoots. When we went to restaurants, she actually talked to me instead of photographing her meal from 12 different angles. She had zero interest in optimizing our relationship for social media engagement. We were just 2 people who enjoyed each other's company without needing to document every moment for strangers on the internet. 6 months later, Delilah and I had just gotten back from dinner at this solid Italian place in Astoria when all hell broke loose outside my building. Through the window, we could see someone pacing on the sidewalk, gesturing wildly and talking to themselves. It was almost 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and most normal people were inside watching TV or getting ready for work. Is that? Delilah started. Yep, that's Valencia. We watched her for a few minutes. She looked like she'd been living in her car, hair a mess, wearing the same Nike tracksuit she'd probably had on for days. She kept checking her phone and looking up at my building, then typing frantically. Then she started walking toward the entrance, stumbling a little. Great. She was either wasted or having some kind of breakdown. Maybe both. The buzzer went off about 30 seconds later. Then again, and again. She was hitting every apartment button like she was playing whack-a-mole. Axel, I know you're up there. We need to talk. More buzzing. Continuous now. My neighbor from 1A texted, your crazy ex is waking up my baby. Handle this shit. Axel, open the freaking door. I'm not leaving until we talk. I looked at Delilah. You want to see some real entertainment? She was already reaching for her phone. Should I call the cops now or wait for it to get worse? Let's see how this plays out first. We went to the window. Valencia was now standing directly under my third-floor apartment, shouting at the building like it owed her money. Axel, you ruined my freaking life. The least you can do is explain yourself. Mrs. Patel from 2B opened her window. She was about 70, had lived in the building for 30 years, and gave exactly zero shits about anyone's drama. She was also the building's unofficial security system. Nothing happened on the block without her knowing about it. Hey, crazy lady. Some of us are trying to sleep. Valencia looked up, squinting at the windows. Mind your own business, old lady. Mrs. Patel laughed, this sharp, cackling sound that carried across the street. Honey, when you're screaming outside my building at 9 p.m., it is my business. You look like you've been sleeping in a dumpster. I'm not homeless. I'm a business owner. Business owner? Mrs. Patel cackled again. What business? Making noise? Because you're real good at that. Maybe try the circus. They need more clowns. Other windows started opening. People were coming out on fire escapes to watch the show. Mr. Alvarez from 3C had his phone out recording. The college kids in 1C were laughing and offering commentary like they were watching a UFC fight. That's when Valencia completely snapped. Screw all of you! Axel Williams is a piece of shit who can't handle successful women. More laughter from multiple windows now. Someone yelled down, Lady, successful women don't have public meltdowns. Delilah, call the cops now, I said. Already dialing. I opened my window and leaned out. Valencia, you are embarrassing yourself. She looked up and saw me. Then she saw Delilah next to me, and her face completely changed. Who the hell is that bitch? That's my girlfriend. Now please leave before the police get here. Your girlfriend? She started laughing maniacally. That's your upgrade? She looks like a freaking librarian. Delilah leaned out next to me. I'm a veterinarian, actually. And you look like you need professional help. Oh, so now you're both experts on what I need? Screw you! Mrs. Patel was loving this. Karen? Honey, you're the one having a breakdown on the sidewalk. She's just standing in her own window. Shut up, old lady. Make me dumpster girl. That did it. Valencia started screaming incoherently while trying to find something to throw at Mrs. Patel's window. She settled on her purse, which opened midair and scattered makeup, receipts, and what looked like bar wrappers everywhere. The contents hit the sidewalk like confetti made of desperation. You threw your purse at a building, I called down. That's the problem-solving skills that got you here in the first place. Screw you, Axel. I gave you the best 2 years of my life. Nah, you gave me a great story and a $35,000 lawsuit settlement. Thanks for that, by the way. I'm not done with you. Yeah, you are. Police are on their way, and Delilah's recording everything. Say hi. Delilah waved her phone. Hi, Valencia. Say something stupid for the camera. I'll sue you. I'll sue all of you. This is harassment. The cops showed up just as Valencia was trying to climb the fire escape. 2 officers, looking like they dealt with this shit every night and had zero patience for drama. Ma'am, you need to come down from there. I'm not leaving until he talks to me. Ma'am, that's trespassing. It's not trespassing. I used to live here. Do you live here now? No, but then it's trespassing. Also, climbing fire escapes is illegal, unless it's an emergency. This is a freaking emergency! What's the emergency, ma'am? He ruined my life. The cops looked at each other. They got her down and cuffed while she screamed about her rights and how everyone was conspiring against successful women. One of the officers asked if anyone wanted to press charges for disturbing the peace and property damage. Hell yes, said Mrs. Patel from her window. I got work tomorrow. The whole building erupted in applause as they put Valencia in the squad car. The crowd started dispersing, but Mr. Alvarez yelled down, Axel, you dodged a freaking bullet, man. Wear a helmet next time, dude. I hope there's no next time. Delilah was crying, laughing. That was the most entertaining Tuesday night I've had in years. Welcome to Dating Me. Drama finds a way. As for me, Delilah said yes when I proposed last weekend. No social media announcement planned. Some moments are too good to share with the freaking internet. Story 4. This story is titled, My Parents Want Me to Move Out While I Keep Paying Rent So My Golden Child Brother Can Move In With Them. But I do something better. Keep the house. Hi everyone. Before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and make sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Hey people. So, I've been sitting on this story for a bit because, honestly, I still can't believe it's my life. But here I am, sharing it because maybe someone out there has been in my shoes, or has advice. Fair warning, it's a bit long, but I need to explain everything for it to make sense. So, I'm the younger sibling in a family where my older brother Chase is the golden child. If you've ever heard the term golden child, just know my brother could be the poster boy for it. Chase has always been the favorite, and my mom doesn't even try to hide it. My mother is the classic case of a parent whose entire life revolves around her son. So, from the time he was born, he could do no wrong. Every accomplishment he had, no matter how small, was treated like it deserved a parade. Meanwhile, I could have won a Nobel Prize, and it'd just be, oh, that's nice, dear. Did you hear Chase got a B plus in math? Growing up, everything revolved around Chase. He always got the best toys, the first pick of whatever, and he never shared. I remember being 5 years old begging to watch The Little Mermaid, but Chase insisted on Jurassic Park, so guess what we watched? My mom's reasoning? Well, he's older, sweetie. That was pretty much the theme of my childhood. When Chase went off to college, I thought I'd finally get a break. But no, my mom acted like the world was ending. She was inconsolable, constantly saying how much she missed her baby boy and how quiet the house felt without him. I was still there, by the way, but apparently I didn't count. She'd call him multiple times a day, email him, even send him care packages weekly. I don't think I've ever received a care package in my life, but sure, Chase needed one every 7 days. After Chase graduated, he got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Harper. She's honestly nice, and I've got no beef with her, but that engagement brought out a new level of crazy in my mom. She treated it like it was her own wedding. I'm talking about obsessing over the venue, picking out decorations, and even buying a dress that looked suspiciously bridal. Harper was gracious about the whole thing, but I could tell she wasn't thrilled about my mom trying to steal the spotlight. Chase and Harper settled in Austin after they got married. It's a decent distance from us here in North Carolina, so I thought my mom might finally start focusing on her own life instead of obsessing over Chase. But no. Instead, she started daydreaming about them moving back. My mom has this fantasy of a big, multi-generational household where we all live together under one roof, and she gets to play grandma to a bunch of kids. Never mind the fact that Chase and Harper don't even have kids yet. While all this was happening, I stayed local for college. It made sense financially, and I figured it'd be nice to help my parents out since they were getting older. After I graduated, I landed a pretty decent job in the city and decided to keep living at home. It was convenient. My job was only a 15-minute drive away, and I figured I'd save up some money while helping out around the house. Plus, my parents had mentioned several times that they planned to leave me the house someday. My mom used to say things like, "One day, this place will be yours, and your dad and I will move to Texas to be closer to Chase and Harper's kids." Of course, that was before it became clear there weren't going to be any grandkids anytime soon. For the past few years, I've been covering most of the bills. My parents retired early, and while they have a little bit of savings, it's not enough to cover everything. So I've been the one keeping the lights on, paying for groceries, and making sure everything gets taken care of. It hasn't been easy, but I didn't mind too much. I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting my family. Besides, it's not like Chase was contributing. He rarely even visits. The last time I saw him was Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and even then, he spent most of the time complaining about his life in Texas. Now you'd think my parents would appreciate the fact that I've been holding down the fort all these years. But no. Instead, my mom spends most of her time talking about how much she misses Chase and how she wishes he'd move back home. It's exhausting. Anytime we sit down for dinner, it's, "Do you think Chase and Harper will ever move back? It would be so nice to have them here, don't you think?" She even has this idea that she and Dad could convert one of the spare rooms into a nursery for when they finally have grandkids. Never mind that they don't even have a spare room, because they turned Chase's old bedroom into a home office years ago. Speaking of the home office, let me tell you about that. After Chase moved to Texas, my dad decided to remodel his old room. He turned it into a fully decked out office for my mom, complete with a custom desk and built-in shelves. My mom uses it for all her hobbies: scrapbooking, writing letters, whatever. She loves that room, and for a while it seemed like she was finally moving on from her Chase obsession. But then Thanksgiving happened, and Chase made some offhand comment about how weird it felt not to have his old room anymore. My mom latched onto that and spent the next month trying to convince my dad to turn the office back into a bedroom, just in case Chase ever comes back. But he didn't. Anyway, that brings us to now. Things have been relatively quiet until recently, but something's changed. My mom's been acting weird. She's been dropping hints about big changes coming soon and asking me things like, "Have you ever thought about living on your own?" The other night, she casually mentioned that it might be a good time for me to start looking for my own place and get married. At first, I thought she was just trying to be supportive or something, but now I'm not so sure. However, as the days went on, my mom's hints went from casual to straight up invasive. She kept asking questions like, "Do you ever feel like you're missing out on life?" Or, "Wouldn't it be fun to decorate your own apartment?" I didn't think too much of it at first, but then she started leaving rental listings on the kitchen counter. I'm not joking. There were printouts with circled addresses and notes in her handwriting like, "Great location," and "Close to work." It was weird, but I didn't confront her right away. I guess I didn't want to believe she was actively trying to push me out. But things got clearer when my dad started dropping comments too. Now, my dad is usually the quieter one between my parents. He mostly keeps to himself and avoids family drama. So, when he suddenly started saying things like, "You're not a kid anymore. Don't you want your own space?" Or, "You can't live with your parents forever. You have to get married or move out," I knew something was up. For context, I'm 27, so yeah, maybe living with my parents isn't ideal, but I've been doing it for practical reasons. It's not like I'm freeloading. I've been paying for everything. The whole setup worked because I've been footing the bills while they enjoy early retirement. So, why the sudden push for me to leave? Then, one night, everything clicked. We were having dinner and my mom casually said, "Chase and Harper are thinking about coming back to North Carolina. Wouldn't it be nice to have the whole family together again?" She said it with this huge smile, like it was the best idea in the world. I didn't react much at first because I wanted to see where she was going with it. Sure enough, she kept talking. "It's just that we don't have much room here anymore," she said, glancing at me like I was the problem. "If they moved back, we'd have to make some adjustments. Maybe we could even turn your room into a nursery someday." I sat there, trying to process what I'd just heard. My room? The one I've been paying to keep a roof over? Now it's a future nursery for Chase's imaginary kids? It felt like a slap in the face, but I didn't say anything. My dad chimed in, saying, "It's something to think about. You're doing great at work. You could afford a nice place of your own." I could feel the frustration bubbling up, but I stayed quiet. I wanted to hear their whole plan before I said anything. Over the next few days, they kept dropping more hints. My mom brought up the idea of turning the home office back into a bedroom just in case. Chase and Harper needed it. She even started talking about how exciting it would be to have a full house again, as if I wasn't already living there. It became clear that this wasn't just some casual daydreaming. They were serious about Chase and Harper moving in. The part that really stung was how little they cared about my role in all this. I've been supporting them for years. I'm the reason the mortgage gets paid, the utilities stay on, and there's food in the fridge. Chase hasn't contributed a dime to this household since he moved to Texas. And now, because he might move back, they're ready to kick me out like I'm a guest who's overstayed their welcome. It's not just about the money either. It's the way they talk about Chase like he's the second coming of Christ. My mom keeps going on about how hard it must be for him to be so far from family. "He's always been such a family-oriented person," she said the other day, as if the man didn't willingly move to another state and barely call home. Meanwhile, I've been here the whole time, doing everything I can to help them, and it's like none of that matters. What really got me was when I overheard my mom on the phone with one of her friends. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but she was talking loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. She was going on about how perfect it would be if Chase moved back and how she couldn't wait to have Harper around to help out with the cooking. I didn't hear her mention me once. Not my name, not my contributions, nothing. It was like I didn't even exist in her vision of the future. The next day, my mom sat me down for what she called a family discussion. My dad was there too, but as usual, he just let her do most of the talking. She started by saying how proud they were of me and how much they appreciated everything I've done for them. It sounded nice at first, but then she pivoted to the real topic: Chase and Harper. "We've been talking about how to make this house work for everyone," she said, "and we think it might be time for you to spread your wings." I asked her what she meant, even though I already knew. "Well," she said, With Chase and Harper coming back, it'll be a little crowded. But we think it's a good opportunity for you to find your own place and start living independently. She said it like it was some great gift they were giving me, as if pushing me out of the house I've been paying for was doing me a favor. I stayed calm and asked what they planned to do about the bills. My mom smiled and said, "Oh, we were hoping you could keep contributing for a while, just until Chase and Harper get settled." Yeah, because it made perfect sense. They wanted me to move out, but still pay the bills so Chase and Harper could live rent-free? I don't even know if Chase has agreed to move back yet, but they're already rolling out the red carpet for him. At this point, it was hard to keep my emotions in check. I asked why Chase couldn't just get a place nearby if he really wanted to come back. My mom sighed and said, "It's not that simple. They're going through a lot right now, and they need family support. You wouldn't understand. You've always been so independent." She said it like it was a bad thing, like my independence was some kind of character flaw. The conversation ended with my mom asking me to think about it and let them know what I decide. I didn't say much. I was too angry to trust myself to respond without blowing up. Afterward, I went to my room and started pacing, trying to figure out what to do. I've never felt so hurt and unappreciated in my life. It's like everything I've done for them means nothing compared to the chance to have Chase back under their roof. Ever since that conversation, I kept going back and forth between being hurt and furious. It was hard to focus on anything else. Every time I looked around the house, I kept thinking about how much of it I'd kept running. The fridge was stocked because of me. The power stayed on because of me. The Wi-Fi they used to binge watch shows all day? But apparently, none of that mattered, because the golden child might be coming back. For the next week, things at home were weird. My parents were clearly waiting for my decision, but I wasn't ready to give them an answer yet. They kept acting like nothing was wrong, which made it worse. My mom was humming while making dinner, asking me how work was going, like she hadn't just asked me to uproot my life for Chase. My dad avoided me for the most part, which was typical of him when things got tense. Meanwhile, I started quietly preparing for what I knew I needed to do. I tried to figure out my options. I knew I couldn't keep living in a house where I was treated like an afterthought. Even if I stayed, the dynamic would never change, and I'd just be prolonging the inevitable. So I started looking for apartments. It wasn't easy because most places near my job were either outrageously expensive or came with reviews that sounded like horror stories. But I eventually found a small place that was reasonably priced and close enough to work that I could walk. The idea of not having to deal with traffic every morning was almost enough to make me smile. Once I decided to move, I realized how much I had to do before I could leave. First, I needed to make sure I had all my important documents. Birth certificate, social security card, bank information, all of it had to come with me. I wasn't about to give my parents any excuse to hold something over my head later. I also started packing my things little by little. I didn't want to make a big scene, so I worked on it late at night when everyone else was asleep. During this time, I've started seeing someone, and having my own place is priceless. The apartment was fully furnished, so I moved in right away. As I was planning all this, I started noticing things I hadn't paid much attention to before, like how much of the furniture in the house was technically mine. Even the microwave was something I picked up during a Black Friday sale because ours had stopped working. The more I looked around, the more I realized how much I'd contributed to this house, and it just made me angrier. How could they ask me to leave when so much of this place was held together by me? A few days before I planned to move out, I overheard another conversation between my mom and Chase. She was on the phone again, this time gushing about how excited she was for him to come home. She kept saying things like, "Don't worry about anything, sweetie, we'll figure it all out," and "We'll make sure you and Harper have everything you need." It was like she had already decided I was gone, and Chase was moving in, even though I hadn't told her anything yet. That was the final push I needed to get out of there. The night I moved out was emotional, but not in the way you might think. I waited until midnight to start loading my car because I'm dramatic just like that. My parents were asleep, and I wanted to avoid any confrontations. I'd already signed the lease on my new apartment, and the landlord had given me the keys, so there was nothing holding me back. Packing up my car was a surreal experience. I couldn't believe how much stuff I had accumulated over the years. It felt strange to see my life reduced to boxes and bags. Once everything was loaded up, I sat in the driver's seat for a moment and just breathed. I thought I'd feel sad or maybe even guilty, but all I felt was relief. I was finally doing something for myself, and it felt good. Before I pulled out of the driveway, I sent a quick text to my mom. "I've moved out. The bills are your responsibility now. Good luck with that." It wasn't the most graceful exit, but I didn't think they deserved much more than that. The next morning, my phone blew up with calls and messages from my mom. She left several voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. The first one was just her saying, "What's going on? Did you leave? Call me back." By the third voicemail, she was practically yelling, demanding to know where I was and why I hadn't told her I was leaving. I didn't respond. I blocked her, my dad, and Chase on every platform I could think of. I even blocked Harper, just to be safe. I knew they'd try to guilt me into coming back, and I wasn't about to let that happen. I focused on adjusting in my new apartment. It was small but cozy, and it already felt more like home than my parents' house ever did. I spent the first night unpacking and setting up my space. It was a little overwhelming, but it was also exciting. I finally had a place that was entirely mine, where I didn't have to walk on eggshells or deal with constant comparisons to Chase. The next day, I called a few close friends to let them know what had happened. They were all supportive and said they couldn't believe how my parents had treated me. One friend even offered to help me decorate my new place, which was a nice gesture. It felt good to know I had people in my corner. But just as I was starting to settle into my new life, I got a call that threw me off balance. It was from a neighbor back at my parents' house. She wanted to check on me because she'd overheard a big fight between Chase and Harper the day before. Apparently, Chase and Harper had already arrived at my parents' place, and things weren't going smoothly. After hearing about the fight from the neighbor, I felt a weird mix of relief and dread. Part of me thought, good, let them deal with their own chaos now. But another part of me couldn't stop wondering what was actually going on back there. I tried to push it out of my mind and focus on settling into my new life, but of course my family wasn't about to let me go that easily. A few days later, my Aunt Clara called me out of nowhere. She's my mom's cousin, but we all just call her Aunt Clara. She's one of those people who knows everyone's business and has no problem getting involved, even when no one asks her to. Honestly, I'd been avoiding her since I moved out because I knew she'd side with my parents. Sure enough, as soon as I picked up, she launched into a lecture. Here's what I just found out from a 2-hour phone call that nearly blew out my right eardrum. "Your mother is heartbroken, you know," she said, skipping any sort of greeting. "She's been crying nonstop since you left. How could you do this to her? To them?" I took a deep breath and said, "Clara, I didn't do anything to them. I just moved out. They're adults. They can handle it." She scoffed. "Moved out? You abandoned them when they needed you most. Do you even know what's happening over there?" I rolled my eyes, but something in her tone caught my attention. "What are you talking about?" I asked. There was a pause before she said, "The house. They're behind on the mortgage. Your parents are on the verge of losing it." Now, this was news to me. "What mortgage?" I asked, confused. "They paid off the house years ago." "That's what you think," Clara said, clearly enjoying the drama. "They took out a second mortgage a couple of years ago. Apparently, it was to help Chase and Harper. I can't believe you didn't know." My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything at first because I was too busy trying to process what I'd just heard. A second mortgage? For Chase and Harper? And I'd been unknowingly paying it off this whole time? Completely oblivious? Clara kept talking, but I barely heard her. Something about how I needed to come back and fix this mess because family sticks together. I hung up on her mid-sentence, which is probably the rudest thing I've ever done. But I didn't care. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to get them from her. The next day, I went to the bank. I wanted to confirm what Clara had said because part of me hoped she was just exaggerating. But nope, she wasn't. The bank teller confirmed that there was, indeed, a second mortgage on the house. It had been taken out 2 years ago, and the payments were being automatically withdrawn from the account I'd been depositing money into every month. All this time, I thought I was just covering utilities and helping out with groceries. Turns out, I was also paying for a mortgage I didn't even know existed. The rage I felt in that moment was indescribable. It wasn't just that they'd lied to me, it was the fact that they'd taken advantage of me for years without a second thought. I'd been working hard, budgeting carefully, and skipping out on luxuries so I could support them, and they used that money to bail out Chase and Harper. It was like every bad feeling I'd ever had about being second to Chase was suddenly validated in the worst way possible. I went home that night and just sat in my apartment. All I could think about was how stupid I'd been to trust them. I kept replaying every conversation we'd had about money, wondering how I didn't see the signs. My mom always made these offhand comments about how tight things were, but then insisted everything was fine whenever I offered to help more. Now I knew why, because they didn't want me asking too many questions. The worst part was realizing how much they must have given to Chase and Harper. My parents aren't exactly known for being financially savvy, so I wouldn't be surprised if they gave Chase the bulk of the loan in one big chunk instead of spreading it out. And knowing Chase, he probably blew through it without a second thought. I debated confronting my parents about it, but I wasn't sure I could handle the conversation without losing my temper. Plus, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of thinking I was coming back to help. They made this mess, and they have to clean it up on their own. Still, I couldn't help but feel hurt. It's one thing to play favorites. It's another thing entirely to lie to your kid and use their money to cover your mistakes. Over the next few days, I started getting more calls from family members. Clara must have told everyone because suddenly, I was the villain of the story. My uncle left me a voicemail saying I needed to step up and do the right thing. Another cousin texted me, calling me selfish for abandoning my parents when they were struggling, and that I left them on the verge of homelessness with nothing in their pockets. It was like they were all reading from the same script. What none of them seemed to understand was that this wasn't just about money. It was about years of being treated like I didn't matter. It was about always being expected to sacrifice for Chase while he got a free pass. And now, they wanted me to come back and fix everything because they couldn't admit they'd screwed up. No thanks. Still, part of me couldn't stop thinking about what Clara had said about the house being in jeopardy. As much as I wanted to let them deal with the fallout on their own, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they actually lost the house. Would they come crawling back to me, begging for help? Would Chase step up for once in his life? Or would they all just blame me for not swooping in to save the day? I don't have answers now, but I know one thing for sure. I am not going to be their safety net anymore. They'd burned that bridge the moment they decided Chase's comfort was more important than my trust. I'll keep you guys posted. Update 1. Hey guys, I came back with an update for you. So, here's where things stand now. A lot has happened since I found out about the second mortgage and decided to let my parents and Chase figure things out on their own. I thought I was done with them, but of course, nothing is ever that simple with my family. After weeks of silence from my parents, I got an unexpected letter from the bank. Yep, the same bank that confirmed the second mortgage. It was a notice about missed payments on the house. Apparently, my parents had been late on their payments for months, and now foreclosure was looming. The letter was addressed to me because, surprise, I was still listed as the primary contributor on their account. I don't know if it was laziness or some messed up manipulation tactic, but they never bothered to remove me after I moved out. I was furious. It wasn't enough that they'd lied to me and used my money to bail out Chase. They also dragged me into their financial disaster. I called the bank to clarify that I was no longer involved, but since the payments were coming from my account for so long, I was technically tied to the mortgage. The representative kindly explained that my parents could lose the house unless the overdue payments were covered immediately. She even asked if I'd like to make a payment right then. I almost laughed at the audacity. At first, I told myself I wasn't going to do anything. Let the house go. Let them all figure out where to live. But as much as I wanted to let it all burn, there was a part of me that couldn't let go of the house that was promised to be mine. I grew up there. I'd put so much money into it, not to mention memories. And let's be real. If my parents lost the house, they'd just show up at my doorstep, guilt-tripping me into taking them in. Chase would probably bring Harper along for the ride too. No way was I signing up for that nightmare. So, after a lot of thinking and venting to a few friends, I came up with a plan. If I was going to get involved, it would be on my terms. I wasn't about to bail them out without something to show for it. If they wanted to keep the house, it was going to be mine. The next day, I went back to the bank to figure out my options. Turns out buying the house outright was possible, but it would require my parents to transfer the title to me. Basically, I'd become their landlord. The idea was both satisfying and a little scary, but I knew it was the best way to protect myself. If they couldn't handle the responsibility, I'd take it out of their hands. Armed with this plan, I went back to my parents' house for the first time since I left. The atmosphere was tense as soon as I walked in. My mom tried to hug me, but I dodged her and went straight to the kitchen table, where Chase and Harper were sitting. Chase was scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. Harper looked stressed, but she didn't say much. My dad was off to the side, pretending to read the newspaper. I laid it all out for them. I told them about the foreclosure notice, the missed payments, and how the bank had contacted me. My mom tried to interrupt with some excuse about how things have been tight, but I shut her down. I don't want to hear it, I said. You lied to me about the mortgage, used my money without telling me, and now you're expecting me to clean up your mess. Here's the deal. I'll save the house, but only if you sign it over to me. The room went silent. My dad was the first to speak. That's ridiculous, he said. This house is our legacy. You can't just take it from us. Your legacy? I shot back. You put this house at risk the moment you took out that second mortgage to help Chase. You've done nothing but take advantage of me, and now you're facing the consequences. Either sign it over or lose it. Chase finally looked up from his phone, glaring at me. You're seriously trying to steal the house? Wow, real classy. You always were jealous of me. I laughed in his face. Jealous? Of what? Your freeloading lifestyle? Please, I'm offering a solution to a problem you helped create. If you don't like it, feel free to pack your bags and find somewhere else to live. Harper looked like she wanted to say something, but held back. I couldn't blame her. It was clear she was stuck in the middle of all this chaos. My mom started crying, of course, but I didn't let it sway me. I'd seen this act too many times to fall for it again. It's your choice, I said, standing up. Sign the house over or let the bank take it. I don't care which. I gave them a week to decide. During that time, I kept getting calls from my mom, begging me to reconsider. She tried every tactic, guilt, anger, manipulation, but I didn't budge. I told her the same thing every time. I'll take care of the house if it's mine, otherwise I'm out. Eventually, they caved. My dad called me a few days later, saying they were ready to sign the paperwork. I think the reality of losing the house finally hit them. They didn't want to move, and they definitely didn't want to rely on Aunt Clara or anyone else for help. Chase wasn't happy about it, but there wasn't much he could do. Harper, surprisingly, seemed relieved. I think she saw this as a chance to escape the chaos, even if she didn't say it outright. Once the paperwork was finalized, the house was officially mine. I made it clear that my parents could stay as long as they followed my rules. They had to keep up with their share of the bills, and Chase would have to start paying rent if he wanted to stay. No exceptions. Chase, of course, threw a tantrum. He called me every name in the book, accusing me of being selfish and ruining the family. I just shrugged it off. I'd spent enough of my life trying to please them, and I wasn't going to waste any more energy on his whining. As for my parents, they seemed to accept the new arrangement, but things were definitely strained between us. My mom barely spoke to me unless it was absolutely necessary, and my dad kept his distance. I could tell they resented me for taking control, but I didn't care. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. The fallout wasn't pretty, but I didn't regret my decision. I'd spent years being taken for granted, and it was time for me to take back what I deserved. The house was mine now, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. I'll post a final update once I see how things will go. Final update. Hey everyone. It's been a while since I last updated, and things have changed a lot. I wanted to wrap up everything for those who followed this mess. So here's where things stand. After I officially took over the house, things got tense, as expected. Chase was furious. He called me names, accused me of being greedy, and even tried to guilt-trip our parents into siding with him. None of it worked. They knew the alternative was losing the house entirely, and I think they realized how serious I was about not letting them steamroll me anymore. Chase refused to pay rent. He said it was disrespectful for me to charge him anything, and acted like it was beneath him to contribute. So I gave him a deadline. Pay up or get out. He didn't believe I'd follow through, but the day after his rent was due, I filed for eviction. He threw a fit and packed up to leave, dragging Harper with him. Harper, though, didn't stick around with Chase for long. A few weeks later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she left him. She got a new job, found her own place, and seems to be doing well. I can't say I blame her. She was stuck in an impossible situation with him. Good for her for getting out. As for my parents, they've stayed in the house under my conditions. They handle their share of the bills now, though there's still some resentment between us. I think my mom's dream of having Chase and Harper close by is officially dead, and she doesn't quite know how to handle it. My dad, to his credit, has kept things civil. We're not exactly close, but at least we're not at each other's throats. Honestly, things are calmer now. The house is quiet, and I'm finally starting to feel like I have control over my life again. It's not perfect. Family relationships rarely are, but I don't regret the decisions I made. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm not just a supporting character in someone else's story. That's it for now. Thanks to everyone who gave advice and support along the way. It helped me more than I can say. Who knows? Maybe I'll be back someday with another update. But for now, I'm just focused on moving forward. Story 5. My wife said I want to explore other options while we're still young. An open marriage would be good for both of us. So I agreed and started dating her attractive friend. She screamed, "This isn't what I wanted." Few days later, I served her with divorce papers. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup Reddit. My wife wanted an open marriage, Said our life is boring and she wanted something new. Then she lost her shit when I started seeing her smoking hot friend from college. It's supposed to be physical, not developing a relationship, she yelled. Then went nuclear when she realized what I'd been up to. You'll have to get yourself a snack because this one's long and wild. I'm 31 male, a mechanic at an independent shop in Dallas. Nothing fancy but the money's decent, and I love working with my hands. Got a house in the suburbs, a garage where I spend most of my free time working on my pride and joy, a '67 Chevy Impala that I've been restoring for the past 2 years. I've been married to Amanda, 30 female, for almost 6 years, together for 7. For the first few years, we had what I'd call a genuinely good thing going. Amanda's a graphic designer at some boutique firm downtown, and we clicked on pretty much everything. We'd take weekend trips to the hill country, had this whole routine of cooking dinner together on Sundays, and could talk for hours about random stuff. Amanda's always been the social butterfly while I'm more of a Netflix and chill guy. Every Friday, she'd hit up drinks with her college crew, this tight group of girls who've known each other since freshman year. Never bothered me because honestly, it gave me time to work on the Impala or catch up on whatever series I was binge watching. She'd come home with funny stories about their drama, and we'd end up talking until late. But around 6 months ago, something started shifting. Amanda's friend Brittany moved back to Dallas and joined the Friday night crew. Brittany's one of those women who thinks marriage is a prison. She'd constantly post Instagram stories from clubs, talk about how much fun she's having being single. Suddenly, Amanda started coming home from Friday nights with different energy. Instead of our usual couch time where she'd decompress and we'd catch up, she seemed restless. She'd scroll through her phone more, make comments about how predictable our routine was, ask if I ever wondered what we were missing out on. The intimacy started fading around the same time. What used to be natural and frequent became forced and cold. She'd find excuses to go to bed early or stay up late working on projects. When we did have sex, it felt like she was going through the motions rather than being present. About 3 months in, things got worse. Amanda started picking fights over the dumbest stuff. Like one Saturday, I was working on the Impala, and she came out to the garage demanding to know why I hadn't noticed she'd rearranged the living room furniture. When I said I hadn't really looked at it closely, she went off about how I never pay attention to anything she does and how I take her for granted. But then she added this real gem. Maybe if you spent less time playing with that stupid car and more time being a husband, you'd notice things that matter. She also started complaining more about the time I spent in the garage, saying stuff like, normal men don't need to hide in garages all weekend, and I married a man, not a grease monkey. When I tried to explain that restoring the Impala was my passion, she'd roll her eyes and say things like, it's just an old car. Grow up and find something more interesting. She started making more comments about money, too, even though I was the primary breadwinner. We could afford nice things if you didn't waste money on car parts, she'd say, completely ignoring that my restoration hobby actually added value and that I paid for it with overtime money. The distance kept growing until I felt like I was sharing a house with a polite stranger who happened to know where I kept my coffee mugs. I tried talking to her about it, but she'd just say she was fine or tired from work, usually while making it clear that whatever was bothering her was somehow my fault for not being psychic. The bomb dropped one night in March. I was in the living room when Amanda walked over and sat on the coffee table facing me. We need to talk about something important, she said, and my stomach immediately went into freefall mode. Nothing good ever follows that phrase. It's like the relationship equivalent of, we need to talk. She started with this whole speech about how she'd been thinking about us and where we're headed. I'm thinking we're about to have one of those check-in conversations couples have sometimes. Maybe she wants to plan a vacation or talk about buying a bigger house. Boy, was I wrong. I think we need to explore our options while we're still young, she said. I stared at her. What do you mean by explore our options? She did this uncomfortable shifting thing and dropped the real news. I love you, but I feel like we're missing out on something. We got together so young and we've never really experienced other people or other relationships. My brain was doing that thing where it's trying to process information, but everything's moving in slow motion. Like when you're in a car accident and you can see it happening, but can't stop it. Are you unhappy with our marriage? I managed to ask. No, that's not it at all. I love you and want to stay married, but I think we should consider opening up our relationship. An open marriage would be good for both of us. We could explore other connections while still maintaining what we have together. She kept talking about how she'd been researching it online and how lots of couples do it successfully. Brittany had apparently told her about some couples she knew who had open marriages and were so much happier than traditional couples. But then she added, besides, it's not like our current situation is exactly thrilling anymore. Maybe some outside perspective would help us both grow up and figure out what we actually want. The whole time I'm sitting there thinking this feels like a script she's been practicing with her friend group, complete with little digs at me disguised as relationship advice. When I asked if there was someone specific she had in mind, she hesitated just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. No, I just want the freedom to explore if the opportunity arises. God, you're so paranoid. Can a woman want something for herself without you making it about your insecurities? That pause was louder than anything she actually said. Here's where I surprised even myself. Instead of losing my mind or trying to talk her out of it, I said, okay. The look on her face was priceless, like she'd been gearing up for World War III and I just handed her a white flag. Really? She said. Really, I said. If that's what you think our marriage needs, let's try it. The next morning, Amanda left for work practically skipping. She actually said, I'm proud of you for being so mature about this, like she was my mom congratulating me for not throwing a tantrum. I went to the shop but couldn't focus on anything. During lunch break, I did something I hadn't done since college. Downloaded dating apps. Not just one, but 3 of them. If we were playing this game, I was going to play it right. But honestly, I wasn't just jumping into dating to spite Amanda. I realized that if our marriage was heading south, I needed to get my own life together. So I started making some changes. First thing I did was hit the gym. I'd been meaning to get back in shape for years, and suddenly I had all this nervous energy that needed somewhere to go. Started going after work before heading home, lifting weights and running on the treadmill. It felt good to focus on something I could control. Weekends became all about the Impala. Instead of trying to squeeze in time with Amanda, who was clearly not interested and would just make snide comments anyway, I'd spend entire Saturdays and Sundays in the garage. It was therapeutic, and I was making real progress on the restoration. I also started hanging out with my buddies more. Troy, Chris, and Bruno had been asking me to join their poker nights for months, and I finally started going. Bruno, my Mexican best friend since high school, immediately called me out when I showed up to the first game looking like hell. Dude, you look like someone ran over your dog with your own truck, Bruno said, dealing cards. What's Amanda got you doing now? When I explained the open marriage situation, Bruno nearly choked on his drink. Wait, wait, wait. She basically said, I want to bang other guys but keep you around for emotional support and mortgage payments. And you said, yes. Bro, you're either playing 4D chess or you've completely lost your mind. Setting up the dating profiles was weird as hell. How do you write married guy looking for something casual without sounding like a complete creep? Turns out there are way more people interested in that setup than I expected. Apparently, Dallas is full of people who want connection without the commitment. My first few dates were complete disasters. There was Emma, a yoga instructor who spent the entire dinner talking about her spiritual journey and chakra alignment. Then Victoria, who seemed normal until she started showing me photos of her 3 cats and explaining their personalities in disturbing detail. But here's the thing. I wasn't just having fun. I was preparing my exit. My marriage is already over since Amanda asked to open it. So during that time, while she's enjoying this new experience, I got to work. After that second train wreck of a date, I spent the next few days quietly moving money around. I opened a separate checking account and started having part of my paycheck deposited there. I made copies of all our financial documents, insurance policies, and property records. I also called my buddy Ryan, who'd gone through a nasty divorce 2 years earlier. He gave me the name of his lawyer and some advice. Document everything, secure your assets, and don't tip your hand until you're ready to move. Meanwhile, I kept up the dating charade. Amanda started going out more often, staying out later, and coming home with this glow I remembered from when we first started dating. Except now, it wasn't because of me. I noticed she was starting to ask casual questions about my dating life, but in that way women do when they're fishing for information, without wanting to seem like they're fishing. How's the app thing going? She'd ask while doing dishes. Meeting anyone interesting? Then she'd always follow it up with something about how she was sure I'd find someone appropriate for my level. Bruno had the perfect response when I told him about this. Oh, she's fishing all right. But instead of catching information, she's about to catch these hands when she realizes you're not sitting around crying into your toolbox. I also noticed her watching me more carefully. She'd make comments about me going to the gym like, I guess you're trying to impress someone now. Ask why I was working so much overtime with this accusatory tone like I was stealing from her, and even seemed annoyed when I'd spend entire weekends in the garage instead of hanging around the house waiting for her to come back from her dates. Now here's what happened before everything went nuclear. One evening, while I was scrolling my phone, I matched with Valeria. I recognized her immediately. Valeria had been Amanda's roommate junior year and was in a bunch of their group pictures. She was the one Amanda always made passive-aggressive comments about, usually something about how Valeria always got all the attention, or how guys would hit on Valeria when they were out together. Valeria was objectively gorgeous, like movie star gorgeous, with dark hair, green eyes, and the kind of smile that makes you forget what you were saying. When we matched, I wasn't even sure if I should mention that I knew who she was. But Valeria brought it up first, saying she remembered me and asking if we were still together. I explained the open marriage situation, and she seemed genuinely surprised, but not judgmental. Amanda always did like to shake things up, she said with this little smile that told me there was history there. Our first coffee date lasted 4 hours. Valeria was everything Amanda used to be before we got comfortable. Intelligent, funny, actually interested in what I had to say. She asked about my work, my Impala restoration project, my thoughts on everything from movies to current events. She listened to my answers and asked follow-up questions instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. Valeria and I started seeing each other twice a week. The chemistry was immediate and intense, but more than that, being with her felt easy in a way I'd forgotten was possible. One evening when she came over, I was working on the Impala's transmission, and she actually seemed interested in watching me work. She asked questions about what I was doing, complimented my tools, and even handed me parts when I needed them. It was amazing having someone who appreciated the craftsmanship and skill that went into restoring a classic car, instead of complaining about the time I spent on it or calling it a stupid hobby. She's beautiful, Valeria said, running her hand along the Impala's fender. You've done incredible work on her. This takes real skill and patience. That might have been the moment I knew I was falling for her. Amanda had never once said anything positive about my car project, and here was Valeria genuinely appreciating both the car and the work I'd put into it. Meanwhile, I was keeping up my new routine. Gym 4 times a week, extra projects at work, poker nights with the guys, weekends dedicated to the Impala. I was actually feeling better about myself than I had in months. I was getting in shape, making more money, and genuinely enjoying my free time instead of walking on eggshells around Amanda. Bruno noticed the change immediately. Damn, man. You went from looking like a kicked puppy to looking like you just won the lottery. Valeria's got you glowing like a quinceañera candle. Amanda definitely noticed the changes. She started making comments about how I was never around anymore, and asking why I was suddenly so busy, but with this entitled tone like I owed her my schedule. The irony was incredible. She was the one who wanted space to explore other people, but she seemed bothered that I was actually using my time productively, instead of sitting around waiting for her. I thought the point of this was for us to still prioritize our marriage, she said one night, when I told her I was going out. You're acting like a single man. Isn't that what you wanted? I asked. Not like this. You're supposed to still care about coming home to me. Her questions about my dating life became more frequent and pointed. She wanted to know where I was going, who I was meeting, what we did together. But she'd ask in this condescending way, like, I hope you're being safe out there, or just remember some women are only interested in what they can get from you. I kept things vague because, honestly, what was I supposed to say? That I was having the time of my life with someone who made me feel appreciated again? After about 3 weeks, I could tell Amanda was getting anxious. She started coming home earlier from her own dates and got this tight expression whenever I mentioned I was going out. She also started making these little comments like, remember, this is just for fun, not for falling in love. Bruno's take on this was perfect. She's acting like a kid who gave away her favorite toy and now wants it back because someone else is playing with it. Except the toy is you, and you're not stuffed with cotton, you're stuffed with common sense. One night, she tried to initiate intimacy with me for the first time in months. She came into the living room, wearing this lingerie I hadn't seen in forever, clearly expecting me to jump at the opportunity. But honestly, I wasn't feeling it. Between her recent coldness and the fact that I knew she was sleeping with Rick, the whole thing felt gross. I'm not really in the mood, I told her. Her face went through about 5 different emotions. What do you mean you're not in the mood? I'm your wife, and I'm allowed to choose who I want to sleep with, just like you are, I said. That was the whole point of the open marriage, right? She looked like I'd slapped her. That's not the same thing. You can't just reject me like I'm some random woman. I'm your wife. How is it not the same thing? You've been out there exploring your options, and now I get to explore mine. That includes choosing when and with whom I want to be intimate. You're being ridiculous. Wives have certain rights in a marriage, and you can't just decide to ignore them because you're having some midlife crisis with dating apps. She stormed off to the guest room, and I could hear her on the phone with Brittany, probably complaining about how unreasonable I was being. The irony was incredible. She wanted the freedom to see other people, but expected me to still be available whenever she felt like it. The turning point came when I decided to invite Valeria over for dinner. I told Amanda that evening that I was having a friend over for dinner the next night. She asked who, and I said it was someone she knew from college. When Valeria arrived, looking absolutely stunning in a simple black dress, Amanda's face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Dinner was incredibly awkward. Amanda was fake polite to Valeria, but kept making these subtle digs about how Valeria was still playing the field and must be having so much fun being single. She also made comments like, some people never learn to settle down, and I guess not everyone is cut out for real commitment. Valeria, to her credit, was gracious and actually tried to include Amanda in the conversation. The whole time I could see Amanda watching how Valeria and I interacted, how Valeria laughed at my jokes, how she asked follow-up questions about stories Amanda had clearly stopped listening to years ago, how she complimented the dinner I'd cooked instead of critiquing it. After dinner, Valeria asked if she could see the Impala, and I proudly showed her out to the garage. I could see Amanda watching us through the kitchen window, her face getting darker by the minute as Valeria admired my work. After Valeria left, Amanda waited exactly 30 seconds before losing her absolute mind. When I told Bruno about the dinner later, he was dying laughing. So your wife's college roommate shows up looking like a snack, actually appreciates your work, and Amanda's watching through the window like some psycho neighbor? Bro, that's not dinner. That's a telenovela episode. What the hell was that? Amanda screamed the second the door closed behind Valeria. I played dumb. What was what? You brought Valeria here? To our house? Of all the people you could be seeing, it had to be her? I thought you'd be happy to reconnect with an old friend, I said, which only made her angrier. Don't give me that bull. You know exactly what you were doing. You brought her here to rub it in my face because you know she's always been everything I'm not. Rub what in your face? The fact that I'm dating someone, like we agreed? Not someone like her. Valeria's always been the one who gets everything handed to her. The guys, the attention, everything. And now you're just another one of them, aren't you? Just another guy who thinks she's so special. So let me get this straight, I said. You asked for an open marriage so you could see other people, but you're mad that I'm actually seeing someone? I didn't think you'd find someone like her, she said. And there it was. The truth finally coming out. I thought you'd maybe find some desperate woman who'd be grateful for whatever attention she could get from a married man. Someone like what? Someone who actually seems to enjoy my company? Someone who appreciates the things I'm passionate about instead of calling them stupid? Amanda's face crumpled, but then the anger came back stronger. Someone better than me, is that what you're saying? You think you're too good for me now because some college princess is slumming it with you? I stared at her for a long moment. This isn't what I had in mind when we agreed to open the marriage, I said, throwing her earlier words back at her. This is different, she protested. You're supposed to be exploring, not replacing me. And definitely not with someone who's going to make me look pathetic by comparison. How? How is it different? She couldn't answer because there was no answer. She'd expected me to fail at this while she got to explore whatever she wanted. The idea that I might actually find someone amazing, especially someone she knew and had always been insecure about, had never occurred to her. In her mind, I was supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps of attention she threw my way while she had her fun. That's when she spilled it. She'd been seeing Rick, a coworker, for 2 months before she even brought up the open marriage idea. They'd been flirting and she knew she wanted to pursue it, but didn't want to be a cheater. The whole open marriage conversation had been her way of getting permission for something she was already emotionally invested in. Besides, she added, like this somehow made it better, Rick actually appreciates me. He doesn't spend all his time playing with cars like some teenager. He has real ambitions and goals. I felt this weird calm settle over me, like when you finally figure out what's wrong with an engine that's been running rough. Well, that changes things. She'd essentially been having an emotional affair and then manipulated me into agreeing to an arrangement that legitimized it. When she tried to argue that she hadn't technically done anything wrong, I cut her off. The boundaries were crossed before they were even established, I told her, and left the room. That's when I decided it was the time. The next morning, I called my lawyer and set up a consultation. Within a week, I had my ducks in a row. I played it cool for another 2 weeks, acting like everything was normal while the lawyer prepared the paperwork. Amanda seemed to think we'd work through her Rick revelation with some counseling and boundary adjustments. First, she begged me to stop seeing Valeria. Then she suggested we dial back the open marriage and focus on rebuilding our connection. I think we've both learned some valuable lessons, she said. Maybe we rushed into this too fast. I'm willing to be more understanding about your needs, if you can be more mature about mine. I nodded along. The lawyer was impressed with how thoroughly I'd prepared. Most guys come in here after their wife has already cleaned them out, he said. You're way ahead of the game. Bruno's reaction when I told him my plan. So you're going full John Wick but with divorce papers instead of guns? My man, you're about to serve her papers colder than a margarita in December. On a Thursday morning, while Amanda was getting ready for work, the process server knocked on our door. Amanda answered in her bathrobe, probably expecting a delivery. Instead, she got handed divorce papers. Her scream could probably be heard 3 houses down. "What the hell is this?" she shrieked, waving the papers like they were on fire. I calmly sipped my coffee. Divorce papers. You can't be serious. We just talked about working on things. No, you talked about working on things. I listened. There's a difference. She started crying, then got angry, then cycled back to crying. This isn't fair. You didn't even give me a chance to fix this. I said I was willing to compromise. You had 6 years to not manipulate me and lie about emotional affairs. That was your chance. But we agreed to try the open marriage. You said you were okay with it. You can't just change your mind and punish me for following the rules we both agreed to. Even now, she was acting like she was the victim. I was okay with honesty and mutual respect. You gave me neither. I can't believe you've been planning this behind my back. How long have you been scheming like some kind of psychopath? This is so manipulative. About as long as you've been seeing Rick, I said. That shut her up for exactly 5 seconds before she started screaming about how unfair it was that I didn't warn her, how I should have given her a chance to fight for us, how this wasn't what she wanted. Real men don't just give up on their marriages. They fight for what they love. But I guess you never really loved me if you can just throw it all away like this. You wanted an open marriage, I reminded her. Now you're getting the ultimate open marriage. We'll both be free to see whoever we want. Then came the part that really set her off. According to the other papers, she had 30 days to find alternative housing since the house was mine, bought and paid for before we got married. Her name wasn't on the deed, the mortgage, or any of the utilities. You can't kick me out, she screamed. This is my home too. I've been living here for 3 years. I have rights. Actually, it's not. You've got 30 days. Where am I supposed to go? I can't afford my own place on my salary. You know that. This is financial abuse. I hear Rick has a place, I said, which made her face turn an interesting shade of purple. Rick and I aren't. We're not ready for that kind of step yet. You can't just force me to move in with someone because it's convenient for you. She threw the papers at me and stormed upstairs. I could hear her on the phone, probably calling Brittany or her mom, sobbing about how cruel and calculating I was being. About 2 hours later, my phone rang. Amanda's mom. I should have let it go to voicemail, but I answered. Bad move. How dare you do this to my daughter? She started screaming before I could even say hello. Hello to you too, Elizabeth, I said. Don't you hello me. Amanda is upstairs crying her eyes out because of what you've done. How could you be so cruel? She made one little mistake and you're destroying her life over it. One little mistake. Right. Elizabeth, I don't think you have the full story. I have enough of the story. Amanda told me everything. She said you two agreed to try new things in your marriage, and now you're punishing her for it. That's not how marriage works. Marriage is about forgiveness and working through problems, not running away the second things get difficult. She asked for an open marriage to cover up the fact that she was already having an emotional affair. I said calmly. That's not trying new things. That's cheating with extra steps. That's not what she told me. She said you both wanted to explore, and now you're being vindictive because she found someone first. You're just jealous that she's more attractive and social than you are. Elizabeth, I'm not going to argue with you about this. Amanda and I are getting divorced. The papers have been filed. You can't just throw away 6 years of marriage. What about for better or worse? What about working through problems? You're being selfish and immature. My daughter deserves a real man who will fight for their marriage, not someone who gives up and runs to lawyers the second things get challenging. I'm being selfish. I actually laughed. Your daughter manipulated me into an open marriage so she could sleep with her coworker guilt-free. And I'm the selfish one. She's trying to work on things. She wants to go to counseling, but you won't even give her a chance because you're too stubborn and proud, and probably jealous that she found someone more successful than you. She had 6 years to not lie to me. That was her chance. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for appreciation. First sign of trouble. And now it was my fault that she cheated because I wasn't a better husband. This woman was delusional. Elizabeth, with all due respect, this conversation is over. Don't call me again. Don't you dare hang up on me. I'm not finished with you. You're going to regret this when you realize what you're throwing up. I hung up and immediately blocked her number, Within minutes, I got a text from an unknown number that was clearly her using Amanda's dad's phone, calling me every name in the book and threatening to make me pay for hurting their daughter. I blocked that number too and forwarded the threatening messages to my lawyer. The apple definitely didn't fall far from the tree. When I told Bruno about the Elizabeth phone call, he was rolling. Bro, her mom called you nothing special? That's rich coming from a woman whose daughter just got served divorce papers like a McDonald's order. I bet Elizabeth's the type who asked to speak to the manager at Walmart. The next 30 days were absolutely wild. Amanda seemed to think if she made my life miserable enough, I'd change my mind about the divorce. She'd leave passive-aggressive notes around the house about how some people don't know a good thing when they have it, and how certain people will regret their choices when they're old and alone. But here's the thing. It was my house, so I started inviting Valeria over regularly. She would come by after work sometimes and sit in the garage with me while I worked on the Impala. She'd hand me tools and just enjoy watching the process. It was everything I'd wanted to share with Amanda, but never could. I could see Amanda watching us from the kitchen window, getting more and more agitated every time Valeria showed genuine interest in my work. By day 15, Amanda couldn't handle watching Valeria and me together anymore. She packed her bags in a dramatic huff and went to Rick's place, declaring she didn't need this house, and that I'd regret throwing away our marriage for some college fantasy who probably won't stick around once the novelty wears off. I felt nothing but relief when her car pulled out of the driveway. Bruno's text when I told him she'd finally left. Amanda's gone? Time to celebrate. I'm bringing tacos. We're toasting to your freedom, hermano. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Amanda tried to claim she deserved half the house, despite not being on any paperwork, arguing that she'd contributed to the household and that her emotional labor should count for something. My lawyer shut that down quickly. She got her car, her personal belongings, and half of our joint savings account. That was it. At first, I thought that would be the end of it. Amanda got what she thought she wanted, freedom to be with Rick without the burden of our marriage. But apparently, that's not how her twisted logic worked. Rick bailed on her about 6 weeks after she moved in with him. According to mutual friends, he got tired of her constant drama about the divorce and her obsession with tracking my social media. She'd apparently spent their dates complaining about me and Valeria, instead of focusing on their relationship. Bruno's reaction to this news. Rick ran faster than a tourist from a street taco that's been sitting in the sun too long. Can't say I blame him. That's when Amanda's behavior got really weird. It started with flowers. I'd come home from the shop and find bouquets on my front porch with these handwritten notes about how sorry she was and how she wanted to talk things through like adults. The notes also included gems like, I know you're just acting out because you're hurt, and we both know Valeria is just a rebound. You'll come to your senses eventually. I threw them away and figured she'd get the hint eventually. She didn't. Valeria started getting Instagram DMs from Amanda, long rambling messages about how Valeria was destroying a family and how she hoped Valeria was happy with herself. The messages got increasingly nasty, calling Valeria everything from a homewrecker to the kind of woman who preys on vulnerable men going through difficult times. When Valeria blocked her main account, Amanda created fake profiles to keep messaging her. The messages got increasingly unhinged, accusing Valeria of stealing someone else's husband and saying things like, enjoy him while it lasts, because men like him always go back to their wives eventually. Bruno's take on the Instagram stalking. Amanda's making fake accounts like she's running a quinceañera planning business. Next thing you know, she'll be sliding into Valeria's DMs as Flower Girl 2024, talking about how she makes the best tamales. Then came the Mutual Friends campaign. Amanda started reaching out to everyone we knew, telling them her version of events where I was a controlling manipulator who abandoned her for her college roommate. Some people bought it, but most had seen enough of Amanda's behavior over the years to know better. The breaking point came when Valeria and I went to our friend Chris's birthday party. Amanda showed up uninvited and spent the entire night following us around, making loud comments about how some people have no loyalty and how certain people couldn't be trusted around other people's husbands. She even tried to corner Valeria in the bathroom to explain the real situation and allegedly told her that I was just using her to make me jealous. We left early, but the whole thing was embarrassing as hell. That weekend, I found Amanda sitting in her car outside my house when I got back from picking up parts for the Impala. She rolled down the window and started yelling about how I was parading that woman around like some trophy and how I was rubbing it in her face just to be cruel. You don't live here anymore, Amanda, I told her. You need to leave. This used to be my home. I have a right to drive down this street. You can't control the whole neighborhood just because you want to play house with your little girlfriend. You have a right to drive down the street. You don't have a right to park outside my house and harass me. I'm not harassing anyone. I'm just trying to understand how you could throw away our entire marriage for someone who's probably just using you for entertainment. She's going to get bored and move on, and then you'll realize what you lost. She drove off, but I found her there again 2 days later. This time she just sat there staring at the house. When I came outside, she rolled down the window and yelled, "I hope you're happy." I hope she was worth destroying everything we built together. Before speeding away, I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email, the works. But she kept finding ways to contact me through mutual friends or by creating new accounts. So I called my lawyer and filed for a restraining order. Between the documented harassment of Valeria, the trespassing, the admitted stalking behavior, and the implicit threat against my property, it was pretty cut and dried. I got a temporary restraining order that day, which became permanent a month later. Amanda violated it within 2 weeks by having Brittany call me with a message from Amanda about how sorry she was and how she just wanted to make things right. According to Brittany, Amanda was devastated and just wanted me to know that she'd learned her lesson and was ready to be the wife I deserved. I reported it, and Amanda got a visit from the cops that apparently scared her straight. It's been 4 months since then, and things have finally calmed down. Valeria and I moved in together officially last month. She's everything Amanda never was: stable, honest, supportive, and genuinely interested in my passions. She even helped me finish the interior restoration on the Impala, and now we take weekend drives through the Texas Hill Country in it. Amanda, meanwhile, has apparently moved back in with her parents after bouncing between Brittany's couch and a series of dating app disasters. Bruno's final take on the whole situation: that's perfect. Now she can practice being someone's problem child before she tries to be someone's wife again. Meanwhile, you're out here living your best life with a woman who actually appreciates your skills. That's what we call a glow up, mi amigo. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd just been honest from the beginning. If she'd said she was having feelings for Rick and wanted to work on our marriage or end it honorably. We probably could have divorced and both moved on with our lives. Instead, she tried to have everything and ended up with nothing. Meanwhile, I got exactly what she thought she was going to take from me: the freedom to be with someone who actually loves and respects me and appreciates the things I'm passionate about. Story 6. Parents handed over the house I bought to my sister, so I stopped paying and it got sold. Alright, so here's how it went down. Picture this: I'm 28, working my butt off in tech, living frugally, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates to save every penny. I wouldn't call my parents poor, but they've never been financially stable either. My folks have had their fair share of money struggles over the years, my dad especially, always switching jobs, sometimes laid off, trying different things to make ends meet. They've always been on the edge of being okay and just barely scraping by, if you know what I mean. Growing up, my sister Perry and I didn't exactly have the same treatment. She's 3 years younger, and man, she's always been the favorite. They let her do whatever she wanted, like she could never really do any wrong. She dropped out of high school, didn't have any plans to go to college, and pretty much floated around, doing odd jobs here and there. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. My parents always had these big expectations for me, always hinting that I had to be the one to make it, because Perry, well, she wasn't going to. So they stretched their savings thin and took out loans to get me through tech school. They made it clear that this was my shot to make something of myself, and they were counting on me to pull through. They were upfront about how they sacrificed for me, how they could have spent that money on themselves or saved it for retirement, but instead, they invested in my future. And honestly, I didn't see anything wrong with it back then. I figured, yeah, they're just doing what any parent would do. They wanted me to succeed, right? So I kept my head down and worked hard, thinking, one day I'll pay them back and everything will be fine. After tech school, I landed a good job. It wasn't anything huge, but it was enough to start saving and paying back some of the student loans, which honestly was a weight off my shoulders. I'd send them some money here and there. Not too much because I was still setting up my own life, but enough to help out. Every time I sent something, Dad would remind me of the big sacrifices they'd made, hinting that there was still more they deserved. This was mostly through subtle comments like, "Don't forget where you came from," or "Remember who got you here." Real subtle, but I got the message. Then one night, I'm back home visiting for a few days. It's the first time I've been able to take some real time off, and we're sitting around the dinner table just talking. Out of nowhere, Dad brings up how they're still renting and how it's tough not to have a place to call their own. He talks about the rent hikes, the noisy neighbors, how tiring it is to move every few years when the lease is up. Then he looks straight at me and says, "We're just wondering when we can stop living on rent and finally settle down, you know?" I kind of laugh it off, thinking he's just venting. But then he goes, "You should think about buying us a place, son. You're doing well now. We've done our part to get you here." I'm sitting there, halfway through my meal, just blinking at him like, "Wait, what?" It hit me that they were dead serious. My mom chimes in, all supportive, saying, "It would really mean the world to us. A place we can call our own. You're the only one who can make that dream come true." In that moment, I felt trapped. They were right there, staring at me, and I didn't know what to say. On one hand, they did pay for my education and support me growing up. But on the other hand, buying a whole house for them? I'd just started my career, and here they were, talking like I should already have enough saved up to buy them a house on top of my own expenses. I tried to laugh it off, saying, "Dad, I'm barely paying rent myself. I can't afford a house for me yet, let alone for you guys." But they brushed it off with a smile and this knowing look, like they believed I'd figure it out eventually. Over the next few months, they kept dropping hints. Every phone call, every time I'd visit, there'd be a comment like, "It would be so nice to settle down somewhere," or "All we want is a small place, nothing big." And they'd follow it up with the usual reminders about sacrifices, how they didn't have a choice but to drain their savings for my school, how much they went without. I couldn't even argue with them. Everything they were saying was true. They had put everything into my future, and they did make sacrifices. But it started to feel like they weren't giving me a choice either, like they were pushing me into a corner. Guilt was their tool, and they wielded it well. Eventually, I caved. After years of saving and cutting back, I managed to scrape together enough for a down payment. I wanted to do it for them, partly because I felt I owed them, but also because I thought it had finally put an end to all the guilt trips. So, I bought them a house. Nothing crazy, just a simple place in a quiet neighborhood, but it was theirs. I was still sharing an apartment, but I thought, this is a good thing. They'll finally be happy, and maybe now they'll let me live my life. For the first few months, they were thrilled. Every call I got from them was about how great the house was, how comfortable they felt, how proud they were to finally have a place to call home. They showed it off to their friends and family, and for once, it seemed like the constant pressure was lifted. They had their house, and I was finally free to start focusing on my own goals. But as much as I thought it would create distance, it didn't. The house only got brought up more. Mom would mention how they were making it a true home and all the little upgrades they wanted, hinting that it'd be great if I could help out with those costs too. Dad would remind me of the mortgage payments, saying how we're all contributing to make this happen. It felt like every time I'd call, there was something new they wanted to discuss about the house. Still, I kept paying the mortgage, sending extra money whenever I could so I could close it off sooner. My life was just work, save, and repeat, but it felt like I was working towards something good. After all, I'd made their dream come true, right? I thought that was what mattered. But every time I'd look at my own savings, I'd get that sinking feeling. I was still just getting by, making all these sacrifices for a house I couldn't even live in, while they sat comfortably in what was supposed to be our accomplishment. So, now that my parents had the house, I figured things would finally chill. I thought they'd back off a bit, you know? I mean, I'd done something pretty huge for them, but the whole favorite child thing with my sister Perry just kept creeping back in, and it was like the more I helped, the more they leaned on me. I kept telling myself it was no big deal, but I was starting to feel more like a wallet than a son. Perry's always been treated differently, even though it's obvious to everyone but my parents. Growing up, she was never held to any standards. She dropped out of high school, got into stuff that didn't really pan out, and kind of drifted from job to job. But in their eyes, she was just finding herself, or exploring her options. They always found a way to paint her choices in some forgiving light, while I was told to stay focused, work hard, and basically make something out of myself so I could support the family. When I was in high school, it was pretty clear who they were betting on. I got drilled about my grades, career plans, and any move I made. Meanwhile, Perry could bring home F's on her report card, and Mom would tell her that not everyone's cut out for school. She could do no wrong, and I was the one expected to set the example. They saw me as their insurance, the one who would go out and make sure everyone was taken care of. Perry was like the family pet, except, she got everything handed to her. So here I am, paying for the house while they're treating it like it's her space too. I didn't think too much of it at first. After all, it was technically their house, so if she wanted to come over or stay for a weekend, it wasn't really my business. But then I'd get these weird comments from my parents about how Perry really loved the new place, or how she'd been staying there for days at a time. They even started talking about how great it would be for her to settle down nearby. That little hint just kept popping up every time I'd visit or call. Every single conversation with them started turning into some variation of, "It's so good for Perry to have stability nearby." They'd say things like, "Maybe she could live here while she figures things out." They'd say it in a casual way, like it was nothing big, just something to think about. But I'd worked my ass off to buy that house for them, not to fund a place for Perry to crash whenever she felt like it. A few months in, I realized that her little visits weren't just visits anymore. She was practically living there. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I asked Mom about it directly one day. She gave me this vague answer, something like, "Oh, well, she's just here helping us out around the house." Helping with what, though? Every time I'd visit, Perry was there, just lounging around like she owned the place. One weekend, I decided to pop by unannounced. I hadn't told them I was coming because, well, I wanted to see for myself what was really going on. I get there, and it's not my parents who open the door. It's Perry. She's wearing pajamas, looking super comfortable, like this was her place. She seemed surprised to see me and actually asked, "Oh, what are you doing here?" As if I was the one intruding. I remember just standing there, a little stunned, trying to process why she was acting like she'd been there for weeks. I go in, and the whole house is set up with her stuff everywhere. There were clothes and bags and makeup strewn around. It was like she'd moved in, no question about it. I ask her, "Where are Mom and Dad?" She shrugs, saying they're out shopping or something and won't be back for a while. I sit down trying to play it cool, but inside I'm fuming. We sit in this awkward silence for a few minutes, and I just can't take it anymore. I go, "So, are you staying here for a bit?" She just shrugs again, saying, "Well, it's a nice place. Mom and Dad don't mind me hanging out here." I wanted to tell her off, say something like, "Yeah, well, maybe I mind," but I knew that would blow up into something bigger. So instead, I just nodded, biting my tongue, trying not to lose it right there. When my parents came back, I brought it up casually, saying something like, "Hey, I didn't realize Perry was staying here." They just laughed it off, saying she needed a place to stay for a while because things weren't working out with her roommates. I knew exactly what that meant. She'd probably gotten kicked out or couldn't pay her part of the rent. But of course, my parents would never actually say that. To them, it was just another harmless little adjustment in her life. Nothing was ever her fault. That night, we all sat down for dinner, and the entire time, they kept praising her for helping them out around the house. I couldn't believe it. They were acting like she was some kind of hero for being there, while I'm the one actually paying for the place. Every time I tried to bring up something related to the house, they'd steer the conversation back to Perry, how good it was for her, how she was finally getting her feet on the ground, and how this was just what she needed to get on the right track. It was like I wasn't even part of the picture anymore. They were making this house about her, as if my sacrifices didn't exist. After that night, I couldn't shake this feeling that I'd been duped. I didn't sign up to buy a house for Perry. I bought it for them, thinking I'd be giving them security. But it started feeling more like I was financing Perry's new life. I left that visit feeling frustrated, like I'd walked into a trap I didn't even know was there. It was becoming clearer that my parents had a blind spot the size of a house when it came to Perry. I couldn't help but feel like I was being taken advantage of, and it was getting hard to ignore. The next time I talked to my parents, they dropped another bomb on me. They started talking about how settled Perry seemed to feel in the house and how great it would be if she had her own space. I tried to laugh it off, saying, "Well, she's got to find her own way eventually, right?" But they just looked at me with these blank stares, like I wasn't getting it. And I realized then that they had a different idea about what her own space meant. All right, so here's where things went completely off the rails. After that last visit where I'd walked in on Perry just lounging around the house, I figured she'd be moving out soon. Or at the very least, she'd help out if she was planning to stay longer. I thought maybe she was just crashing there temporarily, like we all do when we're going through something. But a couple of weeks later, my mom calls me up, all casual, and drops a bomb on me. They'd actually moved out. Yeah, you read that right. My parents moved out of the house I bought for them, and Perry had moved in full-time instead. I sat there, phone in hand, trying to process it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I bought that house specifically for my parents, thinking it would give them the stability and peace of mind they deserved. And now, out of nowhere, they just handed it over to Perry. No heads up, no conversation, just a casual announcement like I'd have no problem with it. I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, "Why would you move out? This house was for you and Dad, not for Perry." My mom just laughed, brushing it off like it was no big deal. "Oh, honey, we needed a fresh start. Besides, Perry needs the house more than we do right now. She's trying to get her life together, and having a stable place to live will help her a lot. She said it so matter-of-factly, like it was the most logical thing in the world. She's trying to get her life together, she explained, like that justified everything. She needs stability, especially if she's going to have a family someday. I was just sitting there, stunned, trying to wrap my head around what she just said. Stability? What about the stability I'd been working toward? What about all the sacrifices I'd made to make sure my parents had a decent home to live in? And now, out of nowhere, Perry was just taking over, and they hadn't even bothered to ask if I was okay with it. Finally, I asked them flat out, "So, are you saying Perry's living there full time now? And what about the mortgage? Who's paying for that?" My mom's tone shifted, sounding almost defensive, like I was accusing her of something. "Well, honey, you're doing well for yourself now, aren't you? It shouldn't be a big deal for you to keep paying a bit longer. Besides, she's family." There it was, the "you're doing well" line again, as if my hard work and all the sacrifices I'd made meant they had free access to whatever I'd built for myself. I tried to keep my cool, but it was like a slap in the face. I said, "Mom, this isn't what we agreed on. I bought that house for you and Dad, not for Perry to live rent-free while I cover the bills." She sighed, sounding exasperated like I was the one being unreasonable. "We thought you'd understand. She's struggling and she doesn't have the same opportunities as you. You've always been the responsible one, and we're just asking you to help a little longer." At that point, I was barely holding it together. Help a little longer? Mom, I'm paying for the entire thing. It's not a little help. I've been paying extra every month to get this paid off faster, thinking it was for your stability. Now you're telling me you just handed it over to Perry without even asking me? My dad chimed in then, trying to sound calm and reasonable, but he came off more patronizing than anything. "Son, we didn't think it'd be such a big deal. We know you're financially stable, and Perry could really use this. It's just until she gets back on her feet." "Gets back on her feet?" I said, my voice rising despite trying to keep it in check. "She's been getting back on her feet her entire life. When does it stop being my responsibility to fix everything for her?" They just sat there, looking at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Finally, my mom said, "Well, maybe we shouldn't have assumed you'd be so willing to help your own family." The way she said it, like I was the bad guy, just hit me hard. It was like no matter what I did, they'd always find a way to turn it on me. I got up to leave, saying, "Look, this needs to change. Either she pays her part, or you guys do, but I'm not just footing the bill for Perry to live for free in the house I'm sacrificing everything for." They didn't respond, just looked at each other like they were disappointed in me, as if I'd let them down somehow. Driving home, I felt more frustrated and betrayed than I ever had before. They'd pulled this move, blindsiding me with a decision that impacted my life in a huge way, and then they had the nerve to make me feel guilty for not wanting to just go along with it. It was like all my hard work and everything I'd done for them meant nothing. Back at my place, I tried to calm down, thinking maybe I was overreacting, that maybe I was being selfish for wanting a little say in how my money was being spent. But the more I thought about it, the more it sank in that I wasn't being unreasonable at all. I mean, who just hands over a house that someone else is paying for without even asking them? What kind of parents do that? And what kind of sister just moves in without offering to help out, without even considering that maybe this wasn't fair? I felt like I was at a crossroads. If I kept going along with this, what was next? Would I be expected to fund every little thing they decided to hand over to Perry just because I was doing well? Would I always be the backup plan, the one they could depend on whenever they needed money? I thought back to all the years I'd worked to get here, all the sacrifices I'd made. I'd spent my life trying to make them proud, working my way up so I could give them a better life. And now that I'd done it, it was like I was just a resource to them. Not a son with his own dreams, but a wallet. And Perry? She wasn't even remotely grateful. It was just expected that I'd step in and fix things for her whenever she needed it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something had to change. I couldn't keep paying for everything without setting some boundaries, or this was never going to end. If they saw me as their financial safety net, they'd never stop taking, and I'd never be able to live my own life. So I made up my mind. I was going to have to set some hard limits, even if it hurt them, even if they didn't understand. Because at the end of the day, I'd spent too long sacrificing everything for a family that saw my success as theirs to spend, and I deserved better than that. After that last call, it was clear I had to make some tough decisions. The whole situation had gotten out of control, and if I didn't set some hard limits, they'd keep taking from me until I had nothing left. My parents had moved out without a word, turned my house into Perry's place, and had the nerve to use my extra payments to cover their rent. They didn't see a problem with any of it, and that told me they'd keep pushing until I put my foot down. I took a couple of days to think it through. I wanted to approach this calmly, not just come in guns blazing. The plan was simple. I'd tell them I wasn't going to keep sending extra payments, and if Perry wanted to live there, she needed to start contributing to the mortgage or move out. It was time for some real boundaries. So, I called my parents and told them we needed to talk face to face. They weren't thrilled, but agreed, and I headed over to their new place. The tension was thick when I arrived, and it was obvious they knew what this was about. We sat down, and I didn't waste any time getting to the point. Look, I started, keeping my voice as calm as I could. I found out from the bank that the extra money I've been sending hasn't been going toward the mortgage. I don't appreciate being kept in the dark about where my money's going. My dad tried to wave it off. It's not a big deal. We needed the extra to cover rent since we moved out for Perry. You're doing well, we didn't think you'd mind. That, "you're doing well" line again. I was so sick of hearing it. They used it every time they wanted something from me, like the fact that I'd worked hard somehow made it my job to fix all their problems. I took a deep breath and replied, "But I do mind, Dad. I bought this house for you, not for Perry. And the extra was supposed to pay off the mortgage faster, not fund a second place for you. I can't keep doing this." My mom gave me that disappointed look she'd perfected over the years. "Honey, Perry needs stability. She doesn't have the same opportunities as you. We thought you'd want to help your sister." I was so frustrated I could feel my patience slipping. "Mom, I'm already helping. I bought the house, I've been paying the mortgage, and I even sent extra. But Perry's an adult. If she wants to live there, she needs to contribute. This isn't fair to me." Dad shook his head, looking annoyed. "You're being selfish. We've done so much for you. Isn't it time you gave a little back to the family?" I felt my temper rising, but I kept it together. I am giving back. I've been giving more than enough. But I have a right to set limits, and right now, the limit is that I'm only paying the minimum mortgage from now on. If Perry's staying there, she needs to pitch in, or she has to find somewhere else to live. They both looked at me, clearly unhappy, but I didn't back down. I'd rehearsed this in my head so many times that I knew exactly what I needed to say, and I wasn't going to let them guilt me into caving. "This isn't about not caring," I added. "It's about fairness. I worked hard to get here, and I deserve some respect for that. I'm happy to support you guys, but not like this." My mom sighed and tried one last time. "We thought you'd understand. Family takes care of each other." "Family also respects each other," I replied, feeling more firm than ever. "I've done everything I can to support you, but I have to draw the line somewhere. I need to focus on my own life too. If Perry wants to stay, she needs to help out. If not, then I'll figure something else out with the house." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. They weren't used to me talking like this, and I could see they didn't know how to react. My dad eventually muttered, "We'll talk to Perry." It was obvious he wasn't happy, but he realized I wasn't backing down this time. I left, feeling drained but also relieved. For once, I'd stood up for myself without feeling guilty about it. I didn't know what they'd do or what Perry would say, but at that point, I didn't care. I'd done my part, more than my part, and it was time they started respecting that. Over the next few days, I heard nothing from them. No calls, no messages, just silence. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, but every time I replayed the conversation, I knew I'd done the right thing. I'd been bending over backward for years, and it was finally time to put my own needs first. Then, one afternoon, my mom called. Her voice was calm, almost resigned. She told me they'd talked to Perry, and she'd agreed to start contributing to the mortgage. Just a small amount, but it was something. She sounded disappointed, like she still couldn't believe I'd actually asked for it, but I didn't let it bother me. "That's good to hear," I said, keeping it short. I didn't want to drag this out or get into another guilt trip session. I was just relieved that for once, they'd actually respected a boundary I'd set. Hanging up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was relieved, yes, but also sad. I never thought it had come to this, having to argue with my own parents just to get them to respect what I'd worked so hard for. But I knew it had to happen. If I didn't stand up for myself now, this would be my life forever, constantly giving, constantly being expected to cover everyone else's mistakes. In the weeks that followed, things were quieter. They didn't push as much, and there were no more sudden changes I wasn't told about. For once, I felt like I was actually living my life for myself, not just as a backup plan for everyone else. I won't say everything's fixed. I know they still see me as the responsible one they can lean on, but at least now I've drawn a line. And if they cross it, I won't hesitate to remind them of where that line stands. It took me years to get here, and I'm not going back. After that last talk, I knew it was time to walk away. I'd tried everything, reasoning with them, setting boundaries, even offering a compromise to keep things fair. But no matter what I did, it always ended up the same. They saw me as their safety net, not as their son who also had his own life and goals. So I made the decision I should have made a long time ago. I stopped paying the mortgage. I was prepared for the fallout. The calls started almost immediately. At first, it was my mom calling every day, sometimes multiple times a day, leaving these long-winded voicemails about family obligations and how disappointed they were in me. She'd remind me of all the things they'd done for me growing up, making it sound like I was some selfish jerk who'd abandoned his family. Then my dad joined in. His voicemails were sharper, more frustrated. He'd say things like, "We raised you to support your family. We thought you'd always be there for us." But to be honest, I was numb to it. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I'd given them everything I could, and they'd taken advantage of it. This wasn't my problem anymore. Eventually, when I kept ignoring their calls, they ran out of ways to reach me, but that didn't stop them. They started calling from different numbers, sometimes even borrowing friends' phones to try to catch me off guard. I'd see an unknown number pop up and hesitate, just in case it was important. But sure enough, it'd be another voicemail from my mom, going on about how family doesn't abandon each other, trying to guilt trip me right back into covering the mortgage. But this time, I wasn't having it. I blocked every number I could recognize, and when new ones popped up, I blocked those too. I think what hit me the hardest was realizing that, for them, this was normal. To them, family meant I'd endlessly give, no questions asked. It never crossed their minds that I might have my own life, my own dreams. They couldn't see me as anything other than a bank account with a voice on the other end of the line. With no one covering the mortgage, things unraveled quickly. Within a couple of months, the bank took over the house, and before long, they put it up for auction. I'd been expecting it, but there was a part of me that felt the sting. This was supposed to be the home I'd given to my parents, the home I'd sacrificed so much for. But after everything, it wasn't really my loss. They decided Perry was entitled to it, and I wasn't going to keep throwing money into a place I no longer had a say over. I'd had enough. When the house sold, Perry and her husband had to move out because they had no way of paying for it themselves. The calls started coming from Perry too, though by then, I'd already blocked her number. I didn't want to hear her sob story, didn't want to hear about how unfair it was that I was taking away her stability. She had been given every opportunity to step up, to help out, to at least take some responsibility, but she'd done none of that. And I wasn't going to listen to her whine about it now. Then came the guilt-laden messages from my parents. Even after the house was gone, they didn't stop. They tried to make me feel like I'd betrayed them, calling me ungrateful and selfish, saying things like, "We never thought you'd just walk away from family." But to me, it felt like I'd done nothing but give to my family, at the expense of my own life. All they saw was that the money had stopped flowing, and that was enough to make me the villain in their story. It didn't matter to them that I'd spent years sacrificing my own goals to support them, that I'd bought a house for them with money I could have used for myself. They didn't care that I was just trying to make a fair choice. To them, I'd become the bad guy the minute I started standing up for myself. Last I heard, my parents ended up renting a smaller place in a cheaper area. They couldn't afford to keep up the lifestyle they'd been used to, and Perry had to finally figure out a new plan for herself. From what I've gathered, my parents have had to make some cutbacks, but they're managing. And Perry? She isn't getting her usual handouts anymore. She's on her own, for what feels like the first time in her life. As much as I might have felt guilty about it before, now I see it differently. She needed this wake-up call. Maybe now, without me as a fallback, she'll realize she has to put in her own work. As for me, I've finally got my own place. It's nothing fancy, a small apartment that I pay for on my own terms. There's a kind of peace in it, knowing that this space belongs to me and that I'm not constantly working just to fund someone else's life. I'm finally able to start saving up for a future that belongs to me alone. The idea of having my own house someday, one that's truly mine, is a goal I'm actually excited about. Looking back, it's wild how long it took me to see the truth. For so many years, I'd told myself I was just doing what was right. That family meant giving everything you had. But somewhere along the way, family became a way for them to take and take without ever thinking about what it cost me. It's a harsh realization, but I needed it. I wasn't just their kid, I was their wallet, and as much as that hurt, it's helped me draw the line I should have drawn years ago. They say hindsight's 20/20ths, and I guess they're right. If I'd known how things would turn out, maybe I'd have handled things differently. But at the same time, maybe this was the only way for me to see the truth. All those years of guilt, all those sacrifices, I see now that it was more about control than love. They didn't want a son who was happy and independent. They wanted someone who'd take care of them without question. I don't know if they'll ever come to terms with what's happened. For all I know, I'll always be the selfish son who abandoned his family when they needed him. But honestly, I'm okay with that. They can think what they want, believe whatever story makes them feel better. But at the end of the day, I know I did the right thing by walking away. Now, I'm finally free to focus on myself. I'm saving up, making plans, building a life that doesn't revolve around bailing anyone else out. For the first time, my future feels like it's mine. And I can't even describe how good it feels to know that the things I work for will actually go toward my own life, not just get swallowed up by someone else's needs. It's taken me a long time to get here, but I don't regret it. If anything, I'm grateful I finally saw the truth and had the strength to make a change. Family should be about love and respect, not obligation and sacrifice. And now I'm finally free to live by that.